Labor Day arrives, and the massive garden centers immediately swap out their potting soil for plastic skeletons and decorative pumpkins. The commercial industry wants you to believe the growing season is officially over. They want you to pack up your patio, empty your containers, and surrender to the supermarket for the next 6 months. And the moment you do, you are locked into buying wilted imported greens shipped from 3,000 miles away at a massive markup. But September is not the end of your container garden. It is a biological mandate. It is the final, closing window to build a food system that will carry you through the fall and into the winter. The soil is still warm enough to trigger rapid germination, but the nights are cooling down, signaling these specific plants to build massive root systems, fortify their cells, and prepare for the frost. Today, we are counting down 15 crops that demand to be planted right now. These aren't just seeds, they are cold weather engines. If you leave your pots empty this month, you are walking away from the highest quality, lowest maintenance food you will ever grow. Let's open the board. Number 15. Kohlrabi. Most container gardeners think of kohlrabi as a spring vegetable, and that is a costly mistake. Push it through summer heat, and the plant struggles to produce the tender, swollen stems you actually want. The real problem isn't the kohlrabi. It is asking a cool season biological engine to perform when the weather is actively working against it. Across Germany and Eastern Europe, kohlrabi became a practical garden vegetable because it was fast-growing, nutritious, and perfectly suited to cool season production. Instead of treating it like a summer crop, smart gardeners grew it as the weather cooled, harvesting those dense, swollen stems while other vegetables were beginning to slow down and die. This is where September becomes your greatest asset. As temperatures begin falling, kohlrabi grows through a much more favorable environment than it experiences during the blazing summer. Cooler conditions slow the plant's vertical growth without stopping it, helping the stem develop gradually instead of racing through stressful heat. Cold season growth drastically influences its carbohydrate metabolism. The result is exactly what makes fall kohlrabi special: a juicy, crunchy vegetable that can be eaten raw almost like an apple, completely devoid of bitter sulfur compounds. Kohlrabi is unusually convenient for containers. Give it a planter roughly 10 to 12 inches deep, use loose, fertile potting mix, and keep the moisture consistent. The most important rule is simple: do not wait for enormous bulbs. Harvest when they are the size of a tennis ball, because oversized kohlrabi becomes tough and woody. If you leave that container empty in September, you lose one of fall's most satisfying harvests, a crisp, juicy crop that brings an apple-like crunch to your table just as summer vegetables disappear. If you think kohlrabi is fast, wait until you see the next crop. This one replaces your summer salads and regenerates like a machine. Number 14. MIZUNA. Many gardeners default to standard butterhead or iceberg lettuce for their fall salads, but traditional lettuce is fragile. It bruises easily, wilts quickly, and often turns to mush at the first sign of a genuine frost. The mistake isn't wanting a fall salad. The mistake is relying on a delicate, watery summer crop when you actually need a cold weather workhorse. For centuries in Japan, MIZUNA has been cultivated as a foundational, high-volume, leafy green. Unlike the delicate lettuces of Western Europe, this brassica was valued specifically for its rugged endurance. It was grown to provide a steady, reliable harvest of fresh greens well into the colder months, serving as a crisp staple in winter dishes when other fresh vegetables were scarce. September is when MIZUNA truly flexes its biological advantage. While summer heat causes MIZUNA to bolt and forces its mustard oils to become overly spicy, the cooling temperatures of autumn signal the plant to focus purely on rapid, tender leaf production. Its serrated, deeply lobed leaf structure naturally resists frost damage far better than broad, flat leaves. The cool weather keeps its signature peppery flavor incredibly mild and civilized, preventing any harsh bitterness from developing in the cellular walls. MIZUNA is one of the most efficient uses of a shallow container. A standard window box or a planter just 6 to 8 inches deep is perfect. Scatter the seeds, keep the soil moist, and let it grow into a dense thicket. Take a pair of scissors, shear off a handful of leaves an inch above the soil, and watch it regenerate a completely new crop in a matter of weeks. If you pass on MIZUNA this month, you lose out on sheer volume. You will be stuck overpaying for bagged salads, missing a continuous, regenerating wave of fresh greens right outside your door. MIZUNA gives you speed, but our next crop is a piece of American history that thrives exactly where other plants give up and die. Number 13. Claytonia. One frustrating thing about fall gardening is the changing angle of the sun. As autumn deepens, patios that were drenched in summer light suddenly fall into partial shade. Most gardeners assume they can no longer grow food and pack up their pots. The trap is believing that all vegetables demand full, blistering sun to produce calories. Claytonia, commonly known as miner's lettuce, is an untamed piece of North American survival history. During the brutal winters of the California gold rush, this wild plant was a literal lifeline. Miners who had no access to fresh produce foraged it from damp, shaded woodland edges to stave off scurvy. It was a rugged, nutrient-dense survival food that thrived where other crops failed. This plant is a masterclass in low-light, cool weather efficiency. Claytonia seeds actively prefer cooler soil to germinate, meaning a September sowing aligns perfectly with their natural cycle. As the days shorten, Claytonia does not panic. Its fleshy, water-rich leaves are incredibly resilient to freezing. While summer heat makes it bolt instantly, the cold autumn air allows it to form beautiful, succulent green rosettes that accumulate vitamin C precisely when your immune system needs it most. This is the ultimate crop for that annoying, shady corner of your balcony. It doesn't need deep soil. A shallow bowl or a wide terracotta pan works perfectly. Keep the potting mix consistently damp. The round leaves grow right through their own stems, creating tiny, edible green cups. As long as you keep it out of the midday sun, it will quietly multiply in the shadows. If you do not plant Claytonia now, you are abandoning the shaded areas of your patio. You miss the rare opportunity to turn the darkest corners of your garden into a continuous source of winter nutrition. Claytonia conquers the shade, but our next crop conquers the frost. It is a misunderstood green that you probably failed with last spring. Number 12. Spinach. Millions of gardeners buy spinach seeds in May, plant them in the warming spring soil, and watch in frustration as the plant shoots up a bitter flower stalk 3 weeks later. The industry sells spinach as a spring salad green, which is a fundamental setup for failure. The mistake is forcing a cold-blooded plant to run a marathon in the summer heat. Historically, true spinach was never a summer crop. Originating in ancient Persia and later becoming a staple across Europe, it was cultivated precisely because it could endure the biting cold of late autumn and winter. Before globalized supermarkets existed, spinach was the reliable, iron-rich workhorse that kept families fed when summer harvests had rotted in the cellars. September is the exact window when spinach stops fighting the environment and starts dominating it. As the soil cools, the biological trigger that causes the plant to bolt is completely deactivated. Instead of racing to reproduce, fall-planted spinach focuses its energy on leaf and root development. The cooler temperatures cause the plant to undergo cold acclimation, slowing its metabolism and thickening its leaves to protect against frost. This makes autumn spinach drastically sweeter and thicker than anything grown in May. Spinach is incredibly forgiving in a container, provided you give it rich, well-draining soil. A medium-depth planter on a partially sunny deck is perfect. Sow the seeds directly into the cool dirt. As the plants mature in October and November, do not pull them up by the roots. Harvest the larger outer leaves individually, and the cold, hardy crown will continue producing well into the freezing months. If you ignore spinach this September because you failed with it in the spring, you lose the ultimate winter green. You will spend months overpaying for slimy bagged spinach instead of harvesting your own. Spinach gives you the classic dark greens, but if you want to understand the true biological magic of frost, we need to look underground. I hear it all the time right around the middle of September. People look at their tired summer plants and say, "I'm done for the year." Let's be clear about what that actually means. Putting the garden to bed is an industrial concept. It's what you do when you are tired of fighting pests and heat. But the soil doesn't sleep in September. It is waiting for the second shift. When you empty your containers now, you voluntarily surrender the easiest growing window of the year. The bugs are dead. The heat is gone. Let's look at a root crop that proves the fastest food doesn't come from a drive-thru. Number 11. Radish. Most beginners buy a packet of radish seeds, plant them in late spring, and end up pulling out something that tastes like spicy wood. When radishes are grown in warm weather, they panic. They race to flower, turning the root pithy, hollow, and aggressively hot. The misconception is that radishes are just a spicy spring novelty when they are actually an efficient fall crop. Long before modern refrigeration, root cellars across Europe and Asia were packed with autumn-grown radishes. Varieties like the black Spanish or daikon were cultivated as winter staples because they grew massive in the cooling fall air and stored impeccably well. They weren't just a salad topping, they were a dense, reliable carbohydrate source that bridged the gap between autumn harvests and spring thaws. September resets the radish clock. When you sow them into cooling soil, the environmental pressure of summer heat is removed. Instead of rushing to flower, the plant directs its energy downward, slowly swelling the root. This slower, cold-weather growth pattern drastically alters the metabolic profile of the radish. The sharp, sulfurous compounds that make summer radishes painfully spicy are subdued, while the crispness and mild sweetness are enhanced. The cold does not stunt them, it cures them. Radishes are the ultimate instant gratification crop for a container. Whether you choose a quick variety like French breakfast or a deeper winter radish, they require very little horizontal space. A standard rectangular deck planter is perfect. Sow the seeds directly, thin them out so they aren't touching, and keep the soil moist. Within 30 to 45 days, you will pull crisp roots right out of the cold dirt. If you skip radishes in September, you miss the fastest, most satisfying crunch of the season. You walk away from the easiest crop, capable of turning an empty container into fresh food before winter sets in. Radishes are fast, but our next crop operates on a completely reversed clock. It is a winter survivalist that hates the heat. Number 10. MÂCHE. If you buy a packet of MÂCHE seeds in May and try to start them alongside your summer tomatoes, you will fail. The seeds will sit in the dirt, refusing to sprout, and you will assume you bought a dead batch. The gardening industry rarely promotes this crop because it doesn't fit the profitable spring planting narrative. The trap is treating MÂCHE like a normal summer vegetable. In Europe, MÂCHE, often called corn salad, has a long history as the absolute king of the winter garden. Before global shipping and heated commercial greenhouses, European farmers relied on it to provide fresh greens in January. It grew wild in the fields of winter wheat, happily enduring freezing rain and snow. It was a cherished winter delicacy that required zero coddling to survive the darkest months of the year. September is non-negotiable for MÂCHE because of a biological quirk called thermal dormancy. If the soil is too warm, the seeds will not germinate. They are chemically programmed to wait for the soil to cool down, signaling the approach of autumn. Once sprouted in the cooling earth, MÂCHE undergoes intense cold acclimation. It grows low in tight rosettes, and its cell walls adapt to handle freezing temperatures without rupturing. Frost is its natural habitat. You can tuck MÂCHE into almost any container, finishing its summer run. As you pull out dying basil, scatter MÂCHE seeds in the empty space. Press them firmly into the cool soil, but do not bury them deeply. It is a slow, methodical grower. By late November, You will have dark green, spoon-shaped leaves offering a rich, nutty flavor. Even if your patio gets dusted with snow, the MACHE will sit comfortably underneath it. Miss the September window for MACHE, and you lock yourself out of the ultimate winter green. You lose the rare chance to harvest a gourmet, cold-proof salad from your containers in the dead of winter. MACHE owns the frozen surface, but our next crop is the undisputed champion of the underground, using frost to engineer its flavor. Number 9. Carrots. Walk into any supermarket and you will see bags of uniform, peeled baby carrots. The industry has conditioned us to view carrots as a year-round, water-heavy snack. So, container gardeners try to grow them in the blistering heat of July, resulting in pale, woody roots that taste like bitter dirt. The mistake isn't your soil, the mistake is ignoring that carrots were never meant to mature in the heat. Historically, carrots were a cold-weather storage engine. Long before modern refrigeration, root cellars across the northern hemisphere were packed with autumn-harvested carrots to bridge the hungry gap of winter. They were bred to be left in the cooling ground, gathering dense calories and nutrients that would sustain families when the fields were frozen solid. They are an ancient survival crop, not a summer garnish. September, planting changes the metabolic profile of a carrot. As the autumn soil cools, the carrot's growth rate slows down, but its biological defenses ramp up. When the first light frosts hit the green tops, the plant senses the dropping temperature and undergoes a critical change in carbohydrate metabolism. To prevent cells from freezing, the root converts its stored starches into soluble sugars, acting as a biological antifreeze. You need depth for this to work. Choose a fabric grow bag or a planter that is at least 12 inches deep. Sow a cold hardy variety directly into the soil now. Let them grow undisturbed through October. When the November frosts arrive, do not panic and pull them up. Leave them in the dirt. Your container is now a living refrigerator. Pull them one by one as you need them for winter roasting or stews. If you skip carrots this month, you don't just miss a root crop, you lose the chance to experience the biological magic of a frost-sweetened autumn carrot, a flavor so intensely sweet it ruins supermarket carrots forever. From the deep roots below, we move back above ground to a plant that stands like a colorful, indestructible fortress against the wind. Number 8. Swiss chard. Many gardeners buy Swiss chard in the spring because of its brilliant neon-colored stems, treating it more like an ornamental patio plant than a serious food source. When autumn arrives and temperatures drop, they rip it out of their containers, assuming its season is over. The trap is believing that vibrant colors equal fragility. In reality, you are tearing out one of the most resilient cold weather crops on the planet. Swiss chard is a direct descendant of the wild sea beets that grew along the harsh, windswept coasts of the Mediterranean. It was cultivated by coastal peasants specifically for its massive, nutrient-dense leaves rather than its roots. It was designed to endure deep chills and punishing coastal weather, providing a continuous, reliable source of iron and vitamins through long, bleak winters when nothing else survived. When you establish Swiss chard in the warm soil of September, it rapidly builds a thick, deep taproot acting as an energy reservoir. As the autumn air cools, the plant doesn't bolt or die back. Instead, dropping temperatures cause the leaves to thicken, while the cold actively reduces the slightly bitter oxalic acid taste that plagues summer-grown chard. The plant slows its growth but remains biologically active, using its thick stalks to store water against freezing winds. Swiss chard demands a heavy pot, at least 5 gallons per plant, to accommodate its robust root system. Plant it in a sunny spot on your deck. The harvesting technique here is the secret to its endurance. Never cut the whole plant down. Use the cut and come again method by snapping off only the largest, outermost leaves at the base. The plant will continuously push out new growth from the center, feeding you week after week. Chard gives you massive volume, but if you want a crop that hands you 2 completely different harvests from a single container, look at number 7. Number 7. Turnips. Most modern gardeners only think of turnips as a dense, slightly bitter root vegetable that you boil when you have nothing else to eat. Because of this, they try to grow them in the warming spring soil. When a turnip grows into the summer heat, it panics. The root turns woody, pithy, and aggressively pungent. The trap is treating the turnip exclusively as a spring root, completely ignoring half of the plant's biological value. Long before the potato was brought to Europe, the turnip was the foundational calorie source for the working classes. But medieval peasants did not just grow it for the root, they grew it as a vital dual-harvest survival crop. In the early autumn, the tender green tops provided essential vitamins. Then, as winter froze the ground, the swollen roots were pulled from the earth to provide heavy storable carbohydrates for the darkest months. Sowing turnips in September aligns their growth perfectly with the cooling weather. The warm, late summer soil guarantees rapid germination, but as the air temperature drops in October, the plant shifts its energy downward. The cooler conditions slow the root's expansion, preventing the woody texture that ruins summer turnips. More importantly, mild frosts trigger changes in the plant's carbohydrate metabolism. The sharp, mustard-like bite of the green leaves mellows out completely, and the root itself becomes surprisingly tender and sweet. To pull off this dual harvest on your patio, you need a planter at least 10 inches deep. Sow the seeds directly and thin them out to give the roots room to swell. In October, harvest the outer green leaves just like Swiss chard, sautéing them with garlic, but leave the inner leaves intact. Then, in late November, right as the hard frost arrives, pull up the sweet roots for roasting, two completely different meals from one pot of dirt. If you overlook turnips this month, you miss out on the most efficient dual harvest crop of the season. You lose the chance to get both continuous tender greens and a frost-sweetened root. Turnips give you two harvests, but what if you want a crop that practically lives forever? Let's talk about a kitchen staple you have been throwing in the trash. Number 6. Green onions, scallions. Walk into any grocery store, and you will see green onions sold in plastic-wrapped bunches. You take them home, chop off the green tops for your baked potato, and throw the white roots directly into the garbage. The commercial food industry has trained you to treat green onions as a single-use, disposable garnish. The mistake is throwing away a highly resilient perennial root system that actually wants to feed you for years. In traditional Asian agriculture, scallions were never treated as a single-season crop. They were permanent fixtures in the kitchen garden. Farmers planted them in dense clusters near the back door, establishing them as a reliable, ever-present flavor base. They survived brutal winters and scorching summers, providing a daily, fresh, aromatic bite without the need to ever buy or replant seeds. It was a self-sustaining system. September is the optimal window to establish these roots. When you plant scallions in the early fall, the cool weather encourages aggressive root development rather than forcing the plant to flower. As winter approaches, the green tops may die back during a deep freeze, but underground, the established crown enters a state of protected dormancy. Because the roots are fully mature, the exact second the soil thaws in early spring, they erupt with fresh green growth weeks before any spring-planted seeds sprout. This is the easiest container crop on the entire list. Take a medium-sized pot or even a small window box. Take the white roots from your grocery store green onions and plant them directly into the dirt, leaving an inch sticking out. By October, they will have pushed up fresh green stalks. Use scissors to snip off what you need, leaving the white base in the soil. They will survive the frost, sleep through the snow, and wake up ready to feed you again in March. If you do not stick those roots in a pot this September, you will spend the entire winter paying retail prices for a disposable garnish. You miss the simplest opportunity to build an infinite loop of free flavor. Scallions offer instant gratification, but our next crop requires absolute patience. It is a chess move designed to save you from the hardest weeks of the year. Number 5. Purple sprouting broccoli. When people hear broccoli, They picture the massive, tight green heads wrapped in plastic at the supermarket. They buy seeds, plant them in the spring, and spend the summer battling heat waves, only to get one tiny, bitter head before the plant bolts to seed. The trap is believing that all broccoli is a summer crop. If you treat this specific heirloom variety like a standard spring vegetable, it will yield absolutely nothing. Purple sprouting broccoli is an ancient heirloom variety from the cooler climates of Europe. It was not bred to produce one giant uniform head for commercial shipping. It was cultivated specifically to solve a serious historical problem, the hungry gap. This was the brutal period in April when winter root cellars were entirely empty, but summer crops had not yet produced food. This plant was a lifeline, standing tall through the snow to provide a massive flush of fresh food exactly when people were starving. This crop actually requires the freezing temperatures of winter to survive. Sown in September, it builds a massive root system and a sturdy leafy structure throughout the autumn. As winter hits, it enters vernalization, a biological process where prolonged exposure to cold triggers the plant's hormonal system to produce flowers. When the soil warms slightly in early spring, the plant violently erupts, pushing out dozens of tender, sweet, bright purple broccoli shoots. You are playing the long game here. Dedicate your largest container, at least 5 to 7 gallons, to a single plant. Put it on your patio now. Through November and December, it will look like a large leafy green bush. Do not harvest the leaves, let the snow fall on it. When late winter breaks into early spring, watch the center of the plant. Once it produces purple shoots, snap them off. The more you snap, the more it produces. If you leave this out of your September planting, you will face the hungry gap with empty hands. You lose the ultimate delayed gratification crop that quietly endures the winter just to hand you the sweetest harvest of the year. Broccoli requires patience, but before we move to the final four, we need to address a dangerous psychological trap. Let's pause for a second because right now you are fighting a psychological illusion. When September rolls around, you look at your patio and you see leaves turning brown. Your tomato vines are shriveling. The visible part of your garden is dying, so your brain assumes the entire system is shutting down. That is the iceberg illusion of the autumn garden. What you do not see is what is happening beneath the soil. In September, the earth is still holding on to the deep heat of the summer. When you put a cold, hardy seed into that warm dirt, it doesn't grow slowly, it explodes. The roots aggressively colonize the container, building a massive, unseen infrastructure. By the time the snow actually falls, the plant has already established a bunker. You aren't growing fragile summer leaves anymore. You are building biological fortresses. Let's look at one of the strongest. Number 4, kale. The gardening industry pushes kale as a standard spring crop, which sets millions of beginners up for a miserable summer. When grown in July, kale is constantly attacked by cabbage moths, and the intense heat turns the leaves into tough, bitter cardboard. The trap is believing that you hate the taste of kale, when in reality, you just hate the taste of heat-stressed, summer-grown kale. It was never meant to endure the July sun. Originating in the harsh, freezing coastal regions of northern Europe and Scotland, kale is a rugged survival crop. It was specifically cultivated by crofters and peasants to stand tall above the winter snowdrifts. It provided a dense, reliable source of vitamin K, iron, and calcium during the darkest, coldest months when absolutely nothing else could survive the biting winds. It was the backbone of the winter diet, completely immune to the frost. When you plant a heavily curled variety like Winterbore in September, you are using the environment to engineer flavor. The deep wrinkles in the leaves act as a biological thermal blanket, trapping boundary layers of air against freezing winds. More importantly, as temperatures drop, the plant initiates cold acclimation. It halts its vertical growth and actively converts its stored starches into soluble sugars to protect its cell walls from rupturing. Frost doesn't kill it. Frost actively removes the bitterness and sweetens the leaves. Give kale a deep, heavy container, at least a 5-gallon pot. and place it in the sunniest spot on your deck. Sow it in early September. Do not cover it when the frost arrives. Let the ice hit the leaves. Harvest from the bottom up, snapping off the lowest, largest leaves and leaving the center crown intact. The plant will look like a small palm tree standing proudly in the snow, feeding you until the early spring. If you dismiss kale this September because of a bad summer experience, you are missing out on the sweetest, most tender greens of the entire calendar year. You lose a crop that actually tastes better the colder it gets. Kale gives you the heavy winter greens, but our next crop ignores the ground entirely to dominate your vertical airspace. Number 3. Snow peas. Most gardening manuals will tell you that peas are strictly a spring crop. Gardeners rush to plant them in April, only to watch them wither, turn yellow, and abort their flowers the moment the harsh summer heat arrives in June. Because of this high failure rate, people give up on peas entirely. The trap is believing that you only get one extremely narrow, stressful window in the spring to grow them. Before the modernization of agriculture, peas were a critical, fast-growing calorie and protein source for early settlers and farmers. They were valued not just for their sweet pods, but because they are legumes, meaning they pull nitrogen from the atmosphere and fix it into the soil, acting as a natural fertilizer. Smart historical farmers knew that a late summer sowing would yield a highly prized secondary harvest just before the deep winter set in. September offers a reversed, perfectly optimized environment for snow peas. When you sow them now, the seeds get the warm soil they desperately need for rapid germination. But as the vines grow taller, the air temperature drops. This is the ultimate biological advantage. Peas require cool air to produce and hold their flowers. The dropping autumn temperatures eliminate heat stress, meaning the plant sets massive amounts of crisp pods without the threat of the summer sun burning them off. This is how you maximize a small patio. Snow peas do not take up floor space. They take up airspace. Plant them in a medium-depth grow bag positioned directly against a deck railing, a trellis, or a wall net. They will rapidly climb upwards. Keep the watering consistent and harvest the pods while they are flat. Because the fall air lacks the brutal heat of summer, the pods remain incredibly crisp and sweet on the vine for much longer. If you leave your trellises empty this September, you are wasting the vertical real estate of your patio. You miss the only chance of the year to grow the crispest pods possible, free from the blistering heat. We are down to the final two. Number 2 is the ultimate underground storage vault, and number 1 is the highest return on investment in the gardening world. Number 2. Beets. Walk into a high-end restaurant and you will see roasted beets featured on $20 salads. The modern culinary world treats them like a delicate luxury. So, beginners try to grow them in the peak of summer, only to pull up tiny, tough, aggressively earthy roots that taste like dirt. The trap is believing that beets are a summer delicacy. They are not. They are a heavy, cold-weather survival crop that actively resents the heat. For centuries in Eastern Europe, the beet was the undisputed anchor of the winter diet. Long before the global food supply chain existed, deep crimson beets were heavily relied upon to make borscht, a dense, calorie-rich soup designed to keep families alive and warm through freezing winters. They were grown specifically to be pulled from cold, unforgiving earth and stored in root cellars for months without rotting or losing their nutritional value. When you sow beets in September, you play directly into their biological strengths. The warm autumn soil ensures fast germination. But as October arrives, the dropping temperatures signal the plant to slow its vegetative growth and focus entirely on swelling the root. This cool weather maturation drastically alters the root's chemical profile. The harsh geosmin, the compound that tastes like dirt, is suppressed, while natural sugars concentrate. Cold weather refines the beet, turning it into a dense, sweet carbohydrate vault. Beets are incredibly space-efficient for containers. You need a pot at least 10 inches deep. Sow the seeds and thin them aggressively so each root has a 2-inch radius to expand. Here is the double harvest secret. Snipping the young outer leaves in October gives you a leafy green that rivals Swiss chard. Leave the root in the soil until just before the deep hard freeze hits, pulling up massive sweet globes for winter roasting. If you ignore beets this month, you are leaving your containers virtually empty of dense winter calories. You lose the chance to harvest a frost-sweetened root that shames the overpriced, watery versions in the supermarket. Every crop on this list is designed to feed you this autumn or winter. But number one is a sovereign crop that demands you to look a full year ahead. Number 1. Hardneck garlic. Every April, millions of well-intentioned gardeners walk into a nursery, buy a bulb of garlic, and push the cloves into the spring dirt, expecting a harvest. A few months later, they pull up a tiny, pathetic, undivided bulb that looks like a pearl onion. The industry lets them make this mistake year after year. The trap is profound. Garlic is not a spring crop. If you wait until the spring to plant it, you have already failed. Garlic is one of the oldest cultivated crops in human history, revered by ancient civilizations not just for flavor, but for intense medicinal properties. Hardneck garlic, specifically, is a rugged survivor from the freezing climates of Central Asia. It was never designed to be pampered in a warm spring bed. It was biologically engineered to endure deep freezes, using the darkest, coldest months of the year to build its strength in absolute silence. September and October are the only acceptable windows to plant hardneck garlic because of a strict biological requirement called vernalization. When you push a clove into the autumn dirt, it spends the fall building a massive, invisible root system, but it needs the brutal, freezing winter to trigger a hormonal shift. Without months of freezing temperatures, the clove refuses to divide. The cold is what forces that single clove to multiply its cells and form a massive bulb. The winter frost is the ignition key. This is the ultimate set-and-forget container crop. You need a large, deep pot. A 7-gallon grow bag is perfect. Take a premium bulb of hardneck garlic, break it into individual cloves, and leave the papery skin on. Push them into the dirt, pointy end up, about 2 inches deep. Water them once and walk away. Let the snow bury the pot. In the spring, they will push up thick green shoots, followed by a curly scape. By midsummer, one clove hands you back an entire bulb. If you do not plant garlic right now, the window permanently closes. You will spend all of next year buying chemically treated imported garlic, deeply regretting that you didn't take 5 minutes in September to secure a massive harvest. And that is the board. 15 biological engines, 15 ways to refuse the winter surrender. The modern world wants you to believe that the cold is an enemy you have to hide from. They want you to look at your empty containers in September and feel like the season is over, so you will go back to swiping your credit card for out-of-season produce. By getting those 15 cold weather engines into your September dirt, you have successfully built your winter fortress. You have guaranteed that your patio will continue to feed you long after the rest of the world has surrendered to the snow. But a winter harvest is only a temporary victory if you are still trapped in the ultimate commercial loop, the spring seed catalog. The fatal flaw of the modern gardener is spending all winter growing independent food, only to hand their money right back to the industrial seed monopolies every spring to start all over again. True food sovereignty isn't just about growing your own calories for one season. It is about owning the genetics forever. If you have to buy a packet of seeds every single year, you are still renting your garden. Let's shift our strategy from surviving the winter to securing our future. Here are 15 forgotten heritage vegetables that provide massive self-sustaining yields, guaranteeing you will never have to buy another seed packet as long as you live. Number 15. Alexander's Smyrnium olusatrum, the food of the legions. Before modern celery was genetically manipulated into existence, Alexander's was the supreme survival herb of peasant families, a plant that actually followed the Roman legions as they conquered Europe. It grew fiercely along hedgerows and in the dark, forgotten corners of the garden. Every single part of it fed a family. The young shoots were boiled like asparagus, the green leaves flavored winter stews, the thick roots were roasted, and the unopened flower buds were pickled as a sharp, peppery delicacy. Its reproductive cycle is a flawless defense mechanism against brutal weather. As a fiercely cold, hardy biennial, its seeds fall to the earth in autumn, sleep silently under a blanket of winter snow, and are the very first to sprout in early spring, providing fresh food before any other crop wakes up. By the end of its life cycle, it shoots up a massive umbrella of lime green flowers, attracting thousands of pollinators, and drops a carpet of black seeds. You never have to replant it. It replants itself to serve you again next year. So, why has it vanished entirely from the modern culinary consciousness? In the 18th century, breeders created modern celery, plump, watery, but essentially tasteless, to serve mass production. Alexander's carried a wild, complex, and peppery flavor profile. Supermarkets demand crops that are easy to store, heavy with water weight for higher profit margins, and bland enough to please every palate. The fiery taste of Roman history was categorized as a weed and forgotten. Bringing Alexander's back to your balcony is an act of historical revival. Sow the seeds in a large, deep container in a shaded corner. Let it grow wild. Forage its stems for stews and pickle its buds in apple cider vinegar. Saving these heritage seeds isn't just about saving a few dollars. It is about preserving a piece of humanity that corporate grocery chains are trying desperately to erase. Plant it, reclaim your independence, and never let them dictate your meals again. Number 14. Oaxacan green dent corn, the emeralds of the ancient land. Thousands of years ago, in the sacred Oaxaca Valley of the Zapotec people in Mexico, there grew a corn that refused to wear the pale yellow uniform of the modern supermarket. Oaxacan green dent corn produces cobs that look like glowing emeralds under the sun. When harvested, the kernels display breathtaking shades of moss green, jade, and brilliant emerald. The Zapotec used it to grind exceptional masa, creating the legendary green tortillas that boasted a dense, earthy flavor no modern sweet corn could ever rival. This is a true homesteader's crop, genetically engineered by nature to feed humans independently. The stalks rise powerfully through drought conditions and alkaline, nutrient-poor soil. When the green cobs dry on the stalk, they harden, creating the signature dent. Indigenous families would harvest them and hang them from the rafters. The seed-saving process was deeply sacred. They selected the bluest, largest kernels from the very center of the best cobs to store. In doing so, the strongest survival genetics were preserved and passed down for free, generation after generation. Its commercial erasure is a direct result of our modern addiction to convenience. The modern world is addicted to instant boil sweet corn. Oaxacan green is a dent corn, requiring the slow, deliberate process of nixtamalization to grind into flour. Corporate grocery chains cannot force their customers to take the time to do that. They push the emerald cobs aside, handing you genetically modified uniform yellow corn that cooks in 5 minutes but leaves you empty. If you are pursuing a slow-living lifestyle, growing Oaxacan green in large 50-liter grow bags on your patio is a meditative experience. Harvesting these vibrant green cobs by hand, hanging them to dry, and shelling the seeds connects you directly to your ancestors. You aren't just buying a packet of seeds, you are buying back the slow, deliberate rhythm of life that the fast food industry stole from you. Number 13. Purple potted peas, blouse chokers, nature's marker. During the golden age of 18th century Dutch kitchen gardens, the purple potted pea was the undisputed queen of the trellis. While regular green peas camouflage themselves deep within the foliage, these brilliant deep purple pods hang in plain sight like amethysts. They are not just beautiful. This vivid color acts as a flawless natural marker, allowing farmers to easily spot and harvest them even in the dim light of dusk without missing a single pod. They are sweet and tender when picked young and produce a rich, hearty soup when left to mature. The reproductive power of the purple potted pea is tied to the immortal heritage cycle. Like all open-pollinated seeds, you consume 90% of the harvest. Those few pods hiding at the very top of the trellis, leave them there. The purple skin will wrinkle, dry out, and turn a papery brown. In late autumn, you pluck those dry husks, shell the round peas, and store them in the dark. They have memorized their survival code, ready to burst into life the moment the spring frost thaws. Commercialization assassinated this beautiful plant with an absurd excuse. When you boil these purple pods, the heat breaks down the anthocyanins, turning the pods green. The industrial canning factories despised this color shift. They wanted green peas in plastic bags and tin cans to maintain a fake uniform green color 365 days a year. The greed for cosmetic consistency robbed us of one of the easiest, most productive, and visually stunning crops in history. To turn your balcony into a living painting, simply sow these seeds in a long planter box and give them a net to climb. The dual-toned crimson and violet flowers, followed by the striking purple pods, will transform your space. Supermarket hybrid seeds will cost you money every single year, but heritage purple pods will hand you color, flavor, and total control of your food forever. Number 12. Celtis, stem lettuce, the forgotten jade sword. In the West, lettuce has always been synonymous with fragile, leafy heads, but thousands of years ago in Asia, a completely different heritage branch was developed, Celtis, or stem lettuce. Instead of wasting energy growing a massive head of leaves, this plant channels all its life force into producing a thick, succulent stem that stands straight up like a jade sword. When you peel away the outer skin, the crisp core delivers a refreshing flavor reminiscent of roasted chestnuts and cucumber, perfect for salads or stir-fries. The natural cycle of Celtis is a masterclass in timing. While normal leafy lettuce easily bolts and turns bitterly unedible at the first sign of summer heat, Celtis uses that exact growth spurt to fatten its stem. You can harvest it slowly, plucking the lower leaves for fresh eating while the plant continues to reach for the sky. When the stem reaches its peak, you leave one or two strong plants in the pot to bloom into yellow flowers and release thousands of parachute-like seeds into the wind. Save those seeds for the fall planting, and the cycle continues infinitely. The reason Celtis is entirely absent from Western supermarkets is the absolute tyranny of standardization. Grocery chains have brainwashed consumers into believing that lettuce must look like a perfectly round iceberg bowling ball. A tall, leafy, sword-like plant that requires peeling simply does not fit into automated plastic bagging machines. The demand for grab-and-go convenience effectively killed off one of the crispiest and most elegantly flavored vegetables on earth. But you are not bound by supermarket logistics. Growing Celtis in a 20-centimeter container on your balcony is incredibly space-efficient because it grows vertically. A watery head of store-bought lettuce costs $3 and rots in 2 days. With Celtis, you harvest leaf by leaf, enjoy the sweet stem, and collect thousands of free seeds for next year. Self-sufficiency has never tasted so crisp. (11) Rapunzel, Rampion Bellflower, the stolen fairy tale. You know the Grimm brothers' fairy tale of Rapunzel, the princess with the golden hair. But did you know Rapunzel is actually the name of a vegetable? Its botanical name is rampion. In medieval Europe, the pregnant mother in the story craved this specific plant so desperately that her husband scaled a witch's wall just to steal it. The young leaves of Rapunzel taste as sweet as butter lettuce, while the pure white taproot beneath the soil is as nutty and crunchy as a roasted chestnut. It was once the most prized crop in monastery gardens. The allure of Rapunzel lies in its beauty and generosity. It is a masterful biennial survivor. The first year, it focuses entirely on plumping its root. If you choose not to harvest it, the second year it shoots upward, blooming into spectacular, vivid violet bell-shaped flowers that attract countless bees. From these flowers, millions of seeds, as fine as dust, are born. You simply shake the dried flower head over a pot of soil, and it sows itself, promising a new generation of sweet roots without costing you a single penny. Yet, its delicate nature was its fatal flaw in the eyes of agricultural tycoons. Rapunzel roots are small, and sowing its dust-like seeds requires the careful, deliberate touch of human hands. It violently rejects mechanization. You cannot drive a massive combine harvester over a field of Rapunzel. The industry abandoned it to make way for massive, tasteless turnips that were easy to rip out of the ground with machines. It was exiled from our dinner plates and left to survive only in the pages of children's books. Growing Rapunzel on your balcony is a purely magical experience. Sow the heritage seeds in a pot of loose loam. You will gain a romantic pot of violet flowers to decorate your slow-living sanctuary, leaves for your evening salad, and roots as sweet as chestnuts. You are literally stealing the magic back from the fairy tale and planting it in reality. And this time, no witch or grocery chain can stop you. Before we move on to number 10, I need to stop and be absolutely straight with you. When you grow these heritage plants, there is a hard truth you must accept. Not every seed you press into the soil is going to grow. Some will sprout magnificently, but others will remain asleep in the dirt forever. Sometimes birds will steal your seedlings, and sometimes a sudden downpour will rot the roots. Modern economics has trained us to view failure as a financial loss, a deficit. But in a slow-living garden, failure is simply the whisper of nature. A seed that doesn't sprout becomes compost to feed the microbes. A seedling eaten by a caterpillar reminds you of ecological balance, that your garden is not a sterile laboratory. Do not be discouraged by an empty pot. The farmers of the past didn't curse the soil. They sowed extra seeds and let nature decide the rest. Embrace that imperfection, because it is exactly what makes every single leaf that does survive 1,000 times more precious. Number 10. Mangolwurzel, the Victorian calorie machine. If a crown were to be awarded to the crop that produces the most massive amount of calories per square meter of soil, it would undoubtedly go to the Mangolwurzel. The granddaddy of the modern sugar beet, this Victorian-era monster can grow to astronomical sizes, weighing up to 20 pounds each, glowing in vibrant shades of orange or crimson. Throughout the 19th century in England, it was the ultimate pantry bin of every farm, feeding humans through famines, brewing strong ales, and keeping cattle alive through long, brutal winters when not a single blade of grass could be found. The power of the Mangolwurzel lies in its explosive growth on marginal land. It pushes its massive body mostly above the soil rather than digging deep, making it incredibly easy to harvest simply by grabbing the leaves and pulling. Once stored in a root cellar or clamped under straw, it retains its moisture and sugar for 8 solid months without a single watt of electricity. In its second year, a single giant root will send up a towering flower stalk, dropping enough seeds to plant an entire acre the following spring. It is a perfectly closed energy loop. So why did such an insanely productive organism vanish? Entering the 20th century, the livestock industry mutated. Feed factories emerged, grinding corn and soy into dry, cheap industrial pellets. For humans, the sudden flood of cheap, refined white sugar made boiling Mangolwurzel for its natural sweetness seem peasant-like and labor-intensive. It was entirely erased because it didn't fit into the new era of fast food and packaged convenience. While you might not be able to grow a 20-pound root on a balcony, growing a baby Mangolwurzel in a large 5-gallon container is an incredibly rewarding gardening experience. Its young leaves are as delicious as Swiss chard, and the baby roots roast up sweeter than standard beets. Planting it is not just about growing food. It is a quiet rebellion against the industrial pellet feed system that severed our connection to primal, raw energy. Number 9. Hamburg parsley, root parsley, the one ousted by the orange carrot. When we think of parsley today, we picture a curly, harmless little garnish sitting pointlessly on the edge of a restaurant steak plate. But centuries ago in Central Europe, the leaves were just a byproduct. The true value was buried underground, the Hamburg root parsley. It looks identical to a pale white parsnip, but when roasted or dropped into a bone broth stew, it releases an incredibly complex, savory flavor. a perfect marriage of crisp celery, sweet carrot, and earthy parsley. Hamburg parsley is an endurance nutrient accumulator. All summer long, it uses its leaves to photosynthesize, slowly packing starches down into its taproot. The miracle lies in its frost resistance. Even when the ground freezes solid under feet of snow, you can overwinter the roots without fear of rot. In fact, that freezing temperature acts as a catalyst, turning the root unbelievably sweet. By year 2, if you leave a few roots in the ground, they will bolt and gift you tens of thousands of seeds. That food cycle never required a trip to the store. Its downfall began when 17th century Dutch breeders decided to develop the bright orange carrot as a tribute to their royal house of Orange. The orange carrot grew faster, plumper, and looked stunningly vibrant on market stands. Commercial agriculture fell in love with the fast cash turnover of the carrot. Root parsley, with its slow growth rate and pale, unexciting white skin, was deemed unprofitable and was swiftly kicked out of agricultural history. On your suburban porch, speed does not matter. Sow Hamburg parsley seeds into a deep wooden planter. You will have fresh leaves all summer and a savory root for your winter stews. Why pay $5 for a plastic jar of artificial bouillon powder filled with MSG when you can grow the original soup root and flavor your meals with the raw power of nature? Number 8. Cherokee Trail of Tears beans, the seed of sorrow and revival. Here it is, the seed I promised you. There is not a single plant on this list that carries the heavy weight of history, quite like the Cherokee Trail of Tears bean. The name stems from the tragic events of 1838, when the U.S. government forced the indigenous Cherokee people to march thousands of miles through freezing snow to a barren reservation in Oklahoma. Thousands died along the way. During that death march, the survivors hid these tiny, jet-black beans deep in their pockets and within the seams of their blankets. It was not just food, it was the sheer will to survive. The Cherokee bean is a pole bean that champions endurance. It produces striking green pods with a purple blush that can be eaten fresh as snap beans or left to dry on the vine until the husks turn brittle, revealing the shiny black jewels inside. Its self-sustaining nature is a testament to survival. Give it a few bamboo poles and it will climb, endure the scorching sun, and yield enough protein to keep a family alive. Dry the pods, save the seeds in the dark, and you preserve the heartbeat of life for the next year. A handful of seeds walked through death and resurrected themselves eternally without the need for a single corporate laboratory. Modern seed conglomerates ignored it because it offered no monopoly. They cannot patent a seed that belongs to the heritage of humanity. Furthermore, as the Cherokee bean dries, it turns dark and wrinkled, failing to meet the artificially plump, shiny green standards supermarkets use to market to consumers. Commerce favors cosmetics, nature favors survival. With just a round pot and 3 bamboo poles tied into a teepee on your balcony, you can honor this legacy. Harvesting these dried beans for a rich winter soup delivers a hearty flavor that rivals any meat. This seed does not belong to corporations, it belongs to families who remember. By planting the Cherokee bean, you are not just growing a vegetable, you are stepping up to become a seed keeper of human history. Number 7. Salsify, oyster plant, the underground delicacy. If you told a 19th century Victorian gardener that the future would stop eating salsify, they would think you had lost your mind. Salsify, commonly known as the oyster plant, was once the absolute pinnacle of root vegetable luxury. Beneath its rough, bark-like brown skin hides a pristine white flesh. The magic happens when you peel it, boil it, and pan-fry it in a little butter. The root emits a savory, briny aroma and tastes shockingly similar to roasted sea oysters. Salsify's survival mechanism is a song of deep roots. It drives a vertical taproot straight down through hard-pan soil, hoarding nutrients over a long summer into the winter. Like root parsley, the freezing snow actually converts its starches into sugars, making it exponentially more delicious when dug up in the dead of winter. It operates on a 2-year biennial cycle. Eat the roots year 1 and leave a few to shoot up gorgeous purple flowers and scatter countless seeds to the wind in year 2. The reason salsify was forgotten by the industrial world is the very taproot that makes it so strong. The root can plunge 15 inches straight down. As agriculture shifted to massive mechanical plows, the metal blades couldn't dig that deep without snapping the roots in half. The commercial industry demanded shallow, round crops that could be ripped out of the earth quickly, like potatoes or radishes. A delicate root that required the careful lifting of a hand fork became a profit liability and was ruthlessly discarded. To grow salsify, you need a deep container, at least 40 yards, filled with loose sandy loam to prevent the roots from splitting. After 4 months of waiting, you will dig up a delicacy that even modern 5-star restaurants rarely possess. Buying a pound of real oysters will cost you a small fortune. Sowing a packet of heritage salsify allows you to pull the flavor of the sea right out of the dark soil on your balcony. While we are on the subject of underground delicacies, I want to share a small observation. Today, we are utterly obsessed with sterility. The vegetables we buy must be scrubbed pristine, flawless, and wrapped in shrink wrap. But slow-living gardening offers a profoundly different sensory experience. It is the moment you plunge your bare hands into the damp morning soil of autumn to search for the roots hiding beneath. Dirt packs under your fingernails, and the rich, earthy scent of earthworms and decaying leaves hits your lungs. That isn't dirt. That is the microbiome that has sustained life for billions of years. When you wash a knobby root you just dug from your own wooden planter, peel it, and cook dinner, the flavor isn't just chemical compounds. That flavor comes from sweat, from anticipation, and from the most primal connection between a human being and the earth. Allow yourself the luxury of getting dirty. Verse 6. Bloody butcher corn, the heart of the winter meal. Before corn was reduced to an industrial commodity used to manufacture high fructose corn syrup and ethanol gasoline, it was the beating heart of the family dinner table. In 1845, the bloody butcher corn was naturally bred in the Appalachian Mountains. Its violent name comes from the striking blood-red kernels striped across a white cob. This is not instant sweet corn. This is a dent corn, meant to be ground into a rich, sweet, deeply flavored cornmeal that baked the cornbread which saved thousands of homesteads through blizzard-choked winters. The cycle of this open-pollinated corn is the absolute definition of independence. A farmer sowed the seeds in spring. The stalks grew 10 feet tall, battling the wind and pulling minerals from the earth. In autumn, they snapped off the blood-red cobs and dried them in the rafters. Most were ground for food, but they always selected the absolute largest, most vibrant cobs, shelled the seeds, and jarred them for the next year. One cob yielded hundreds of seeds. A family never had to purchase corn seed twice in 4 generations. But in 1930, everything changed permanently. Seed corporations introduced hybrid F1 corn and later patented GMOs. Hybrid seeds will not produce healthy, true-to-type stalks if you save and replant them. Farmers were systematically stripped of their right to save seeds. The glorious crimson bloody butcher cobs were eradicated to make way for millions of acres of soulless, uniform yellow corn, strictly designed to force farmers to open their wallets and buy new seeds every single spring. If you have a small backyard or use large 50-liter grow bags, you can resurrect this heritage. Plant the corn in tight square blocks so the wind can naturally pollinate them. You will harvest deep red cobs that look like rustic art, ready to be ground into authentic meal. Stop renting your food from megacorporations. By saving a single blood-red cob, you are taking back the sovereignty of your dinner table. Number 5. Ground cherry, husk cherry, the pioneer's delicacy. In the mid-19th century, as wagon trains of pioneers pushed out into the untamed American West, They didn't bring fussy orchard trees. They brought the ground cherry. Growing low to the soil, this relative of the tomato produces tiny golden yellow berries hidden securely inside an intricate papery lantern. Bite into one and you experience an explosion of flavor, a wildly sweet mix of pineapple, strawberry, and the tartness of a green tomato. The vitality of the ground cherry is so fierce it grows like a weed in the poorest soils. Its seeding cycle is almost completely autonomous. When the fruit reaches absolute peak ripeness, it drops itself to the ground, hence the name. The papery husk acts as a biological net, protecting it from insects and keeping it fresh for weeks. Ancestors simply scooped them off the earth for pies and jams, tossing the spoiled ones back into the dirt where the seeds would sleep and sprout automatically the following spring, an infinite loop of sweetness. Yet, the very act of dropping to the ground was a death sentence in the modern supply chain. Corporate buyers cannot drive massive harvesting machines through a field to pick them all at once. If you pick a ground cherry off the branch while it is green, it remains bitter and will never ripen. While supermarket tomatoes can be picked hard and gassed red with ethylene, the ground cherry violently refuses interference. It demands time and the manual labor of foraging from the dirt. The greed for speed tossed this delicacy out. On your porch, where you have the time to live slowly, the ground cherry is a miracle. A 30-container pot placed in full sun becomes an automatic, natural candy dispenser for your family. You do nothing but water it and wait for the lanterns to fall. Why pay outrageous prices for pesticide-laden strawberries and plastic clamshells when you can grow this heritage fruit preserve from a cheap packet of seeds and regenerate it forever? Number 4. Black Spanish radish, the treasure in the snow cellar. Back in the 1800s, winter in the northern hemisphere was a death sentence for the unprepared. Scurvy, severe vitamin C deficiency, haunted every village. Against this bleak backdrop, the black Spanish radish emerged as a savior. Our grandparents didn't grow this to eat fresh in the summer sun. They sowed it in late summer, harvested it as the freezing winds began to howl, and buried these coal-black orbs in boxes of damp sand down in the root cellar. This natural preservation process is an ecological masterpiece. Its rough, black, sandpaper-like skin acts as impenetrable biological armor, fighting off rot and mold and keeping the pure white flesh inside incredibly crisp for 6 grueling winter months. When the world outside was locked in ice, a farmer simply brushed away the sand, sliced the radish thin, and ate it with salted butter for a massive hit of vitamin C. To keep this free cycle alive, they just left 2 or 3 healthy radishes in the ground to bloom in spring and yield thousands of seeds. Why would such a treasure disappear? Look at the modern produce aisle. We have been brainwashed to believe that radishes must be bright pink, perfectly smooth and bite-sized. A fist-sized radish with rough, coal-black skin looked too dirty and wild for 1950s urban housewives. The invention of the electric refrigerator and the global import system killed the ancestral art of winter food preservation. Supermarkets chose cosmetic beauty, even though those pretty red radishes turned to mush after 4 days in the fridge. If you have a partially shaded balcony in the autumn, this is the perfect crop. They don't need intense heat. A 25-centimeter deep planter is all the roots need. Sow this heritage seed, pull them up in late fall, and try burying them in a pot of damp sand in a dark corner. You will personally experience the centuries-old art of food preservation, a priceless skill that requires 0 electricity and 0 chemicals. Before we hit our final 3, let's talk about the passage of time. We live in a society that operates at the speed of a microwave. We expect next-day delivery and instant streaming. But when you step onto your balcony and put your hands in the soil, you have to leave that mindset at the door. A garden does not care about your schedule. It operates on the ancient rhythms of sunlight, soil, temperatures, and the slow unfurling of leaves. You cannot yell at a seed to make it sprout faster. You cannot pay a plant to ripen its fruit by tomorrow. This is why slow-living agriculture is so healing. It forces you to submit to a pace you do not control. It teaches you that waiting is not a waste of time. Waiting is the very process of growth. So when you plant these seeds, take a deep breath, step back and let the earth do its quiet, unhurried work. Number 3, Aurec, mountain spinach, the usurped king. Before the 20th century, if you walked into a monastery garden in France or a grand estate in England, you wouldn't find a single leaf of modern spinach. Instead, standing tall and proud under the sun was Aurec, the mountain spinach. Roman farmers called it the herb of life. Flashing brilliant shades of ruby red or emerald green, Aurec provided a relentless supply of mineral-rich greens from early spring straight through the brutal heat of midsummer. The superpower of Aurec lies in its thermal resilience. While standard spinach completely panics at the first sign of summer heat, turning bitter and bolting to seed instantly, Aurec calmly continues to push out soft, sweet leaves. Its seed loop operates flawlessly. You harvest by picking the lower leaves. By late summer, the plant towers over you, blooms into magnificent flower spikes, and drops thousands of paper-thin seeds. They sleep in the soil under the winter snow and explode into a vibrant carpet of greens the following spring. The cold chain supply network of the supermarket era assassinated this king. Aurec leaves are incredibly delicate. Once plucked, they wilt within hours, if not immediately chilled. It absolutely refused to be crammed into cross-country transport trucks for weeks on end. Therefore, agricultural tycoons bred the thick, leathery, rubbery modern spinach leaves that could take a beating, sit in a plastic box, and survive 10 days on a shelf. Aurec was erased from history simply because it wouldn't submit to the blandness of commerce. The truth is, bringing this regal plant to your balcony is effortless. You just need a 5-gallon container. The deep purple of red Aurec doesn't just fill your salad bowl, it turns your porch into an ornamental masterpiece. The supermarket sells you fake convenience, but by sowing an Aurec seed, you are harvesting centuries of culinary royalty that no amount of money can buy. Number 2, Tepary beans, the desert survivor. Deep in the cracked, scorching Sonoran Desert of the American Southwest, where summer heat destroys almost all life, the indigenous Tohono O'odham people survived for thousands of years thanks to a biological miracle, the tepary bean. While other tribes faced starvation during severe droughts, their ancestors planted this bean on dry sand dunes, waiting for just 1 or 2 rare summer drizzles to trigger germination. Protein backbone that saved countless human lives through the most extreme climatic periods in history. The survival capacity of the tepary bean defies modern horticultural logic. Its roots plunge incredibly deep into the earth to hunt for the last molecules of moisture, while its leaves physically curl up during the day to stop water evaporation. In a rushed 60 to 80 days, it frantically blooms and produces pods packed with tiny, incredibly dense, high-protein beans. The heritage loop is simple. At the end of the harsh season, you pick the driest pods, shell them, and keep a handful of seeds in a cool jar. That is your food insurance policy for the next year, completely independent of the outside world. Its disappearance is a tragic tale of greed and industrialization. When massive dams and irrigation pipelines were built, commercial agriculture swiftly discarded the tepary. They switched to thirsty bean varieties that required daily flooding because their seeds grew larger, held more water weight, and sold for more money. The tepary's miraculous ability to survive without water suddenly became worthless to a supermarket system obsessed solely with visual size and scale. But you do not live in an industrial farm system. On your sun-baked balcony, where you might occasionally forget to water your pots, the tepary bean is a savior. Prepare a 30-centimeter deep container, mix the soil with plenty of sand and gravel for drainage, and plant these seeds. You will witness firsthand how nature teaches resilience. Stop buying canned beans soaked in chemical preservatives for $4. You are holding a seed that defeated the desert. Number 1. Egyptian walking onions, the miracle of self-cloning. And here we are, number 1. The plant I told you about at the very beginning. Before soggy, plastic-wrapped bunches of scallions dominated the refrigerator aisles, the Egyptian walking onion was the undisputed king of kitchen gardens from Europe to America. Nobody knows if it actually originated in Egypt, but its name comes from an uncanny, almost alien superpower, the ability to physically walk. In the 19th century, settlers carried it as a survival treasure because once you put it in the ground, it is virtually impossible to make it go extinct from your garden. The reproductive cycle of this onion is a biological masterpiece. Unlike normal onions that shoot up flowers and scatter seeds to the wind, the walking onion produces a cluster of miniature onion bulbs right at the very top of its green stalk. As these topsets grow larger and heavier, the stalk can no longer support the weight. It slowly bends over until the bulbs touch the earth. The moment they make contact with damp soil, the little bulbs instantly push out roots, establishing a brand new onion plant a foot away from the mother. Year after year, they walk across your garden bed in an infinite self-cloning loop that requires zero human intervention. So, why do you never see them at the grocery store? Commercial agriculture absolutely despises things that refuse to stay put and look uniform. Walking onions have wild, bending stalks and knobby topsets that cannot be neatly stacked into square cardboard boxes for cross-country shipping. Moreover, why would a corporation sell you a plant that clones itself for free forever when they can force you to buy rootless, hybrid green onions for $2 every single week? To bring this living legacy to your porch, you just need a wide, 25-centimeter deep planter box. They are fiercely resilient, surviving both freezing snows and blistering summers. When the topsets get heavy, you can simply pluck them off and press them into empty pots yourself. Snip the green stalks for your morning omelets and let nature do the rest of the work. You only have to open your wallet to buy this plant exactly once in your lifetime. Outro, the keeper of the seeds. Securing those 15 heritage crops gives you the ultimate seed vault. You have successfully broken the chain of commercial agriculture and reclaimed your genetic independence forever. As long as you have dirt, your family will never go hungry. But a full belly is only half of human resilience. If you spend all your time building a fiercely independent food system outside, but the moment a winter fever sets in, you run straight to the commercial pharmacy for synthetic syrups and plastic pill bottles, you are still tethered to the industrial machine. Our ancestors never separated the garden from the apothecary. They knew that true sovereignty means possessing both the calories to live and the medicine to heal. Let's step out of the garden rows, walk back inside the house, and look at the window ledge. Here are 15 forgotten healing herbs you can grow right on your windowsill to build a permanent living apothecary. Number 15, thyme, the tiny survivor with a massive history. Thyme is one of the physically smallest plants you will ever invite into your home. But do not let its delicate size deceive you. Drop a single, freshly cut sprig into a skillet of sizzling butter or tuck it beneath the skin of a roasting chicken, and your kitchen is instantly flooded with a warm, peppery, rustic aroma. It smells exactly like a late afternoon on the Mediterranean coast, possessing the rare ability to give the most inexpensive ingredients a profound, savory depth. In ancient cultures, however, our ancestors did not just grow this plant to make a better steak. Throughout European history, thyme held a stellar reputation in traditional folk preparations, especially during the bitter months of winter. When freezing winds brought seasonal chest colds, a steeped cup of fresh thyme tea, often mixed with raw honey, was a comforting household staple. Long before it was reduced to a dried powder on a supermarket rack, people understood this was a plant you kept as close to the hearth as possible. This is where history meets the laboratory. Modern science eventually isolated the specific chemical compound responsible for that distinct scent: thymol. Today, researchers study thymol extensively, which completely explains why you constantly see it listed on the back labels of expensive commercial mouthwashes and winter chest rub ointments. The real tragedy is not that we forgot about thyme, It's that we forgot the original version of this compound was always meant to be a living, breathing plant, not a plastic bottle of synthetic liquid. Growing thyme on your windowsill is a test of a gardener's courage to simply walk away. It aggressively resents being pampered, and it utterly despises having its roots sit in soggy potting soil. Give it a terracotta pot with drainage holes, place it in your sunniest window, and let the soil dry out visibly between waterings. In return for your strategic neglect, you are handed a miniature perennial flavor factory. The more you properly clip its sprigs, the more it gives back. Number 14, parsley, the forgotten food. Close your eyes and picture parsley. You likely see a lonely, wilted, curly green sprig sitting on the edge of a cheap diner plate, completely ignored right before the waitress scrapes it into the trash. The commercial supermarket culture has successfully turned parsley into a useless aesthetic decoration. But if you take a massive handful of fresh, flat-leaf parsley, chop it finely with garlic, olive oil, and lemon zest to make a vibrant gremolata, you understand its true power. Spooned over grilled fish, it cuts through heavy fats like a knife and completely wakes up your palate. Our modern, careless waste of this plant would baffle the cooks of the ancient world. In traditional culinary histories, parsley was never a garnish. It was a foundational ingredient, consumed in massive quantities. Consider the legendary Middle Eastern dish, tabbouleh. In that recipe, parsley doesn't sit politely next to the food. It is the food. And this brings us to the great modern disconnect. Parsley isn't just about delivering a bright, grassy flavor. It is an incredibly dense source of vitamin K and a powerhouse of plant compounds, including specific flavonoids. The tragedy is not that parsley lacks nutritional value. The tragedy is that we are using it on the entirely wrong scale. We consume 2 tiny leaves for aesthetics and call it a day, while robust cultures ate it by the handful for vitality. What modern convenience actually stole from us wasn't the plant itself, but the ancestral memory of how to eat it. Fortunately, parsley is incredibly patient. It does not demand blistering direct sun and will grow beautifully in a container on a balcony that only receives partial shade. The biggest test is at the beginning. Its seeds are notoriously slow to germinate, sometimes taking up to 3 weeks to break the soil. Do not assume your pot of dirt is a failure. Wait. When the plant is large enough to harvest, do not just pluck a few leaves from the top. Cut the older outer stems down near the base, leaving the inner crown perfectly intact to continuously push out new growth. Grow it and never use it as a decoration again. Number 13, mint, the unkillable survivor. Mint is not just a flavor, it is a physical strike to your senses. Pluck a fresh peppermint leaf, crush it gently between your fingers, and drop it into a glass of iced lemon water, or slice it thinly into a summer cucumber salad. It instantly delivers an explosive, cooling sensation that no synthetic chewing gum or artificially flavored supermarket syrup could ever replicate. It is the taste of pure, unadulterated freshness. This fierce vitality made mint a constant companion to human civilization for millennia. From the tombs of Egyptian pharaohs to the welcoming, steaming teapots of ancient Arab hospitality, mint has always been present. But our ancestors didn't just use it to freshen their breath. Following incredibly heavy, fat-laden feasts, a highly concentrated cup of strong mint tea was the mandatory ritual to settle the stomach and cut through the physical heaviness of the meal. But the most fascinating truth about mint isn't its cooling flavor. It is its terrifying biological resilience. Why is this plant nearly impossible to kill? Mint operates through a system of underground stems called rhizomes that move beneath the soil like tentacles. Researchers from agricultural extension programs often warn that while other herbs easily die from drought or poor soil, mint will aggressively crawl beneath dry, barren earth to find water meters away. It is not just an herb. Biologically speaking, it is a territorial predator. And that brings us to the absolute golden rule of growing it. Never, ever plant mint directly into your garden beds unless you want it to consume every other vegetable you own within a year. It must be imprisoned, planted in a large, isolated terracotta or plastic pot on your balcony. It forgives you for forgetting to water it, and it thrives in partial shade where sun-loving plants fail. It is the ultimate herb for the lazy gardener, offering an eternal supply of cooling tea from a single, indestructible investment. Number 12. Chamomile, the flower of the evening. When you look at chamomile, you do not immediately think of a kitchen ingredient. It looks exactly like a fragile wild roadside weed with tiny, delicate white petals and bright yellow centers. But if you pluck a fresh flower and steep it in hot water, the aroma that rises is not a harsh floral scent. It is a soft, sweet, deeply comforting fragrance that carries the unmistakable warm scent of crisp autumn apples. In the history of traditional European herbalism, chamomile was never just a pretty flower. It was the ultimate symbol of stillness. For generations, grandmothers and mothers spent hours on warm summer mornings carefully harvesting hundreds of these tiny blossoms, drying them on mesh screens in the attic. When the bitter winter arrived, or when children were restless and feverish, these dried flowers were brought down and brewed into the most soothing tea on earth. Why did a tiny flower become such a monumental evening ritual? Today, science has an answer. Researchers investigating botanical sedatives have identified that chamomile contains high levels of an antioxidant called apigenin. A widely cited review in the Molecular Medicine Reports journal noted that apigenin binds to specific receptors in the brain, promoting mild sedation and reducing anxiety. Millions of mass-produced chamomile tea bags are sold in supermarkets every year. But what modern convenience erased is that the slow, deliberate act of harvesting the flowers yourself on a quiet afternoon is half of the calming therapy. Growing chamomile, specifically German chamomile, in a window box is a beautiful, low-maintenance experience. It requires full sun and well-draining soil. Because it is an annual plant, it will completely die back when the winter frost hits. But do not throw the pot away. Its flowers freely drop microscopic seeds into the soil, and the following spring, a brand new generation will automatically germinate without you having to replant a single thing. It is a perpetual loop of calm, growing right outside your bedroom window. But before we continue the countdown, there is something we need to be incredibly honest about. An herbal windowsill is not a magic pharmacy. A cup of tea does not replace a doctor. A single leaf will not cure a chronic disease. The mindset of instant pain relief is a product of the modern pharmaceutical industry, and Slow Living Chill Farm does not operate that way. The true value of these 15 plants lies in something much simpler. They help us bring fresh, diverse, and deeply flavorful raw ingredients back into our daily meals. You drop a leaf into a soup today. You drink a cup of tea tomorrow. You build your body's resilience millimeter by millimeter, in harmony with the rhythm of nature rather than suppressing it with chemicals. It is not magic. It is a habit. Let's get back to the list. Number 11, ginger, the underground furnace. Ginger carries the flavor of explosive warmth. Simply crush a slice of fresh ginger and drop it into a steaming bowl of broth, or julienne it into a hot wok with beef, and its sharp, peppery heat instantly wakes up every sense in your body. Without this root, half of the Asian culinary heritage would instantly become flat, cold, and entirely uninteresting. Throughout thousands of years of Eastern traditional medicine and Indian Ayurveda, ginger was not merely considered a spice, it was the furnace of the body. It was revered as an internal heater, used to settle the most turbulent stomach issues and chase away shivering chills. Long before the invention of synthetic motion sickness pills, ancient sailors on brutal, storm-tossed voyages would hold a thin slice of raw ginger under their tongues to survive days of relentless seasickness. But the greatest biological twist of ginger is that the part we peel, slice, and eat every day is not actually a root at all. It is a rhizome, a modified, swollen stem that grows horizontally underground to store immense energy. According to research published by the University of Maryland Medical Center, this exact underground vault is where the plant manufactures gingerol, a highly potent bioactive compound extensively studied for its powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. When you buy shriveled, dehydrated ginger at the supermarket that has traveled thousands of miles on cargo ships, you are paying for a rhizome that has already lost half of its volatile oils. Many people mistakenly believe ginger can only be grown on massive tropical farms, but it is actually a phenomenal survivor in a container garden. Buy a plump organic ginger rhizome with visible eyes buds from the grocery store. Bury it shallowly in a fabric grow bag filled with rich, loose potting soil and place it in partial shade. It despises freezing cold and soggy, waterlogged dirt. After a few months, tall, bamboo-like leaves will shoot up, and beneath the soil, a massive rhizome system will have multiplied tenfold. You have successfully installed a permanent biological furnace on your porch. Number 10. Sage, the kitchen philosopher. Sage is visually stunning, featuring silver-gray leaves covered in a microscopic velvety fuzz. When you rub the leaf, it releases a powerful brooding aroma that is an earthy mixture of pine, eucalyptus, and a hint of citrus. In Western culinary traditions, sage is the absolute savior of heavy, fatty meats. Try frying a few fresh sage leaves in brown butter until they shatter like glass, then drizzle them over a plate of roasted butternut squash ravioli. That combination is a masterpiece of flavor balance, transforming a heavy, oily dish into an elegant experience. Its botanical name, salvia, stems from the Latin word salvare, which means to be saved or to heal. In ancient Rome and throughout the Middle Ages, it was widely regarded as the herb of wisdom and longevity. An ancient Arab proverb famously asked, "How can a man grow old who has sage in his garden?" Our ancestors heavily utilized sage in massive feasts, not just for its robust flavor, but because they inherently knew it helped the body comfortably digest heavy, fatty foods that would otherwise cause severe discomfort. The most fascinating truth about sage is that it is a highly divisive flavor. If you use a heavy hand, its intense, piney aroma can completely swallow an entire dish, leaving it tasting bitter and medicinal. The true wisdom of sage isn't that it cures every disease, as medieval legends claimed. It is that it teaches the cook the absolute art of restraint. A tiny amount creates culinary magic. Too much ruins the pot. Much like thyme and rosemary, sage is native to the dry, rocky Mediterranean coast. This means it demands dry feet. Plant it in a large terracotta pot, give it full blazing sunlight, and absolutely do not overwater it. It is a hardy perennial. If you respect its need for dry soil, a single pot of sage will survive harsh winters and provide you with fresh, velvety leaves year after year, standing as a silver-haired survivor on your balcony. Number 9. Lemon balm, the citrus deception. Lemon balm is one of nature's greatest deceptions. At first glance, it has heavily veined, serrated green leaves and looks exactly like a common mint plant. But the moment you pluck a leaf and bring it to your nose, there is absolutely no cooling sensation. Instead, it explodes with a brilliant, sweet, and aggressively sharp lemon fragrance, identical to a freshly cut yellow lemon. Toss a handful of fresh lemon balm into a pitcher of ice water, or stuff it into the belly of a fish before roasting, and you achieve a vibrant citrus flavor without the harsh acidity of actual lemon juice. Throughout the Middle Ages in Europe, lemon balm was affectionately known as the gladdener of the heart. The renowned 16th century botanist John Gerard documented that it was widely used to drive away all melancholy and soothe panicked, racing minds. It was the primary ingredient in Carmelite water, a famous distillation crafted by monks to relieve nervous tension and exhaustion. Before the era of synthetic sleep aids, a warm cup of lemon balm tea was how humanity quietly closed the door on the anxieties of a brutal day. And here is the scientific twist behind that bizarre lemon smell. Lemon balm belongs to the Lamiaceae family, making it a genetic cousin to mint, and has absolutely zero biological relation to actual citrus trees. Yet, phytochemical analyses confirm it produces compounds like citronellal and citrol, the exact same chemicals that give lemons their signature scent. Studies published in journals like Nutrients continue to investigate its potential to improve mood and mildly reduce stress levels. The ability to extract such a powerful, soothing aroma from a fragile leaf is exactly why it became a legend in folk medicine. Because it carries the bloodline of the mint family, lemon balm is a vigorous survivor and can easily become invasive. To keep it safe and manageable, always grow it in its own isolated container. It handles partial shade beautifully and will eagerly bush out after every aggressive pruning. But here is the most important warning. Unlike many other herbs, lemon balm loses almost all of its potent flavor and aroma when dried. Its true value belongs exclusively to the gardener who owns the living plant and harvests the leaves just seconds before the water boils. Number 8. Cilantro, the genetic divide. Cilantro, coriander leaves, is arguably the most fiercely debated flavor in the entire culinary world. For half the population, chopping a handful of fresh cilantro into a bowl of guacamole or scattering it over a hot bowl of Vietnamese pho delivers a bright, peppery, citrus-like explosion that completely elevates the dish. For the other half, that exact same handful tastes identically like chewing on a bar of dish soap. It is the only herb in the kitchen that can start an actual argument at the dinner table. But long before it became a controversial taco garnish, cilantro was an absolute titan of ancient commerce and preservation. Seeds of the coriander plant were discovered in the tomb of Tutankhamun, and it was one of the first herbs brought to the Americas by early settlers. Before modern refrigeration, indigenous and ancient cultures heavily rubbed crushed cilantro leaves and seeds onto raw meats. They did not do this just for the taste. They did it because the herb possessed a remarkable ability to delay the spoilage of fat and mask the smell of age. And here is the ultimate scientific twist to the great soap debate. If you hate cilantro, you are not a picky eater. You are a genetic mutant. Researchers at the genetic testing company 23andMe conducted a massive study involving nearly 30,000 people and pinpointed a specific genetic variation, a cluster of olfactory receptor genes, specifically OR6A2. This gene allows certain people to violently detect the aldehyde chemicals present in cilantro leaves, which are the exact same chemicals produced during the soap-making process. The supermarket tells you it's a universal garnish, but your DNA dictates whether it is a delicacy or a detergent. If you are lucky enough to possess the genes to enjoy it, you must grow it. However, cilantro is a dramatic sprinter. It hates summer heat and will quickly bolt, shooting up a tall flower stalk and turning its leaves incredibly bitter. To beat the heat, plant it in a deep container. It has a long taproot. During the cool days of early spring or late autumn. If it bolts anyway, do not pull it up. Let the flowers dry and collect the seeds. That seed is coriander, a completely different, warm, earthy spice for your pantry. You get two entirely different harvests from a single pot. Number 7. Rosemary, the herb of memory. Rosemary looks less like an herb and more like a miniature, rugged evergreen tree. Its needles are tough, leathery, and dark green. When you strip those needles off the woody stem and chop them fine, they release a heavy, intoxicating aroma of pine wood, lemon, and roasted nuts. Throwing a sprig of rosemary into a pan of roasting potatoes with olive oil and coarse salt is a culinary ritual that transforms a cheap root vegetable into a rustic, incredibly aromatic masterpiece. But the true identity of rosemary goes far beyond the roasting pan. For thousands of years, this plant was universally known as the herb of remembrance. In ancient Greece, students preparing for arduous examinations would weave sprigs of rosemary into their hair, believing the scent stimulated their brains. In medieval Europe, mourners would throw sprigs of it into graves to signify that the departed would not be forgotten, while brides wore it in their hair to remember the families they were leaving behind. It was woven deeply into the emotional fabric of human history. Was this ancient association with memory just romantic folklore? In 2012, researchers at Northumbria University put this exact myth to the test. They placed subjects in a room infused with the essential oil of rosemary and tested their cognitive performance. The results were startling. Exposure to the aroma of rosemary, specifically a compound called 1,8-cineole, significantly improved the subject's speed and accuracy in memory tests. The ancient Greeks did not need a laboratory to understand what their bodies already told them. Today, companies sell you tiny glass vials of essential oil for $20, completely isolating the scent from the soul of the living plant. You do not need to buy an expensive vial. A living rosemary bush is a fiercely independent survivor. Native to the rocky sea cliffs of the Mediterranean, its name translates to dew of the sea, it thrives on neglect. Planted in a large, heavy pot with sandy, well-draining soil, it demands full, blistering sun and absolutely hates sitting in water. Treat it like a desert plant. It grows slowly, but eventually it will form a massive, woody shrub on your balcony, providing you with a lifetime of flavor, fragrance, and perhaps a slightly sharper memory. Number 6. Oregano, the wild mountain survivor. When we hear oregano, almost everyone immediately pictures a greasy slice of delivery pizza. That dried, dusty, flavorless green powder shaken out of a plastic bottle is the only version of oregano most people will ever know. But if you take a fresh, velvety leaf of true Mediterranean oregano and crush it, the scent is shockingly fierce. It is pungent, spicy, slightly bitter, and aggressively loud. It doesn't just season a tomato sauce, it wrestles it into submission, completely dominating the dish with its wild, earthy heat. Before it was reduced to a cheap pizza topping, oregano was considered a formidable protective herb. The name itself comes from the Greek words oros, mountain, and ganos, joy, the joy of the mountain. Ancient shepherds observed that sheep grazing on wild oregano rarely fell ill. Long before modern sanitation, robust Mediterranean cultures used heavy amounts of this herb in their daily cooking to preserve foods in the blistering heat and to physically fortify themselves against seasonal illnesses. The science behind this mountain joy is incredibly potent. Oregano is packed with two powerful phenol compounds, carvacrol and thymol, the same compound found in thyme. Numerous studies, including those published in the Journal of Applied Microbiology, have observed that carvacrol exhibits intense antimicrobial activity in laboratory settings. This has led to a massive, modern wellness trend where companies extract pure oregano oil and sell it in tiny droppers as a brutal, burning cure-all. But taking drops of isolated essential oil is missing the point. The ancestral wisdom was not to burn your throat with chemical extracts. It was to eat the whole plant regularly, building resilience through daily flavor. Growing oregano is incredibly satisfying because it is a relentless, creeping survivor. It will quickly spill over the edges of whatever pot you put it in. It prefers poor, slightly rocky soil in full sun. But here is the most crucial harvesting secret. Oregano is one of the very few herbs that actually tastes better and more intense when dried, provided you do it yourself. Cut long stems just before the plant flowers. Hang them upside down in a warm, dark place for a week. And then crumble the dried leaves into a glass jar. You will never buy the dusty supermarket version again. Number 5. Garlic chives, the cut-and-come-again machine. Garlic chives, known as nira in Japanese cuisine, are a visual contradiction. They look exactly like flat blades of dark green grass, yet they pack the unmistakable savory punch of fresh garlic. But unlike a raw clove of garlic that leaves a harsh, burning sulfur aftertaste, these flat leaves deliver a sweet, mild, and incredibly refined garlic flavor. Stir-fry a massive handful of them with eggs or fold them into the filling of pork dumplings, and they provide a depth of umami that standard green onions could never hope to achieve. In traditional East Asian agrarian societies, garlic chives were considered the ultimate peasant food, but in the best possible way. They were known as a warming food, believed to stimulate blood flow and combat physical fatigue after brutal days working in the fields. Because they grew relentlessly in almost any condition, they were the reliable backbone of the daily diet when other crops failed. They provided intense, rich flavor to families who could not afford expensive meats or imported spices. Today, the commercial supermarket system completely abuses this plant. If you can even find garlic chives in a Western grocery store, they're usually wrapped in suffocating plastic, already turning slimy and yellow, and sold at an absurd premium as an exotic Asian herb. The lie the supermarket tells you is that this is a fragile, expensive specialty item. The truth is that garlic chives are biologically engineered to be one of the most indestructible, high-yielding perennial vegetables on the planet. They are a weed that tastes like a delicacy. If you have a single pot on your balcony, you can completely bypass the grocery store's plastic waste. Plant a clump of garlic chive bulbs in a wide container. They are incredibly tolerant of poor light, thriving in both full sun and partial shade. But their greatest superpower is their harvest cycle. When you need garlic flavor, take a pair of scissors and cut the entire plant down, leaving just 1 inch of green above the soil. Within days, it will violently push up new blades. You can harvest the exact same pot 4, 5, or 6 times a season, year after year. It is a cut-and-come-again machine that never stops printing flavor. Let's pause for a second. Think about the dried spices sitting in your kitchen right now. A jar of supermarket oregano isn't completely useless, it's just a ghost. It is entirely different from a plump, oil-rich sprig you harvested from a pot 30 seconds ago. The food industry pulled off a brilliant illusion. They convinced us that true flavor is manufactured in a facility, pulverized, aggressively dehydrated, stuffed into tiny glass jars with colorful labels, and given a 3-year shelf life. We pay $5 for a lifeless powder and think we are buying convenience. In reality, we are buying a compromise. And that is the true gap between buying a spice and growing it yourself. You don't dig your hands into the dirt just to save a few coins. You do it to taste the world exactly as it was meant to be, before an industrial supply chain erased its vitality. True flavor must carry life. Now, let's move to the final 4. These are the absolute titans of the list, the purifiers, the queens, and the beautiful outsiders. Let's count down to number 1. Number 4, lemongrass, the tropical giant in a pot. Lemongrass does not possess the subtle, delicate aroma of European herbs. It is loud, vibrant, and unapologetically tropical. When you take a heavy knife and smash the pale, woody base of a lemongrass stalk, the fibrous layers break open to release an intoxicating, sharp perfume of sweet lemon, ginger, and wild mint. Dropped into a simmering pot of Thai tom yum soup or a Vietnamese beef broth, it completely transforms the liquid, cutting through rich bone marrow fats and leaving a clean, floral brightness that no other plant can replicate. In Southeast Asian and Indian folk traditions, lemongrass was highly respected as an internal and external shield. Boiled into a strong, fragrant tea, it was the traditional remedy used to break severe fevers and flush the body of exhaustion after long days in the monsoon rains. But its power extended far beyond the kitchen. Bundles of fresh lemongrass were hung around windows and doorways, serving as an invisible aromatic armor to protect households from dense swarms of tropical mosquitoes. This ancient armor is backed by incredibly precise biochemistry. The essential oil of lemongrass is exceptionally high in citronellal and geraniol. A study published in the Journal of Vector Ecology documented that these specific compounds actively mask the lactic acid and carbon dioxide humans exhale, effectively blinding mosquitoes to our presence. The commercial industry isolates these chemicals to create synthetic, sticky bug sprays that wash off in an hour. The ancestral method was much simpler. Grow the armor yourself, eat it daily, and let the plant defend your patio. Despite its exotic reputation, lemongrass is a remarkably aggressive survivor in a container. You don't even need to buy seeds. Buy a fresh, firm stalk from the grocery store, place the root end in a glass of water on your windowsill, and wait a week until white roots emerge. Then, plant it in a large, deep pot in full sun. It is a heavy drinker, so keep the soil consistently moist. By midsummer, that single stalk will have exploded into a towering, 3-foot-tall fountain of razor-sharp green leaves. You get world-class soup broth in a biological mosquito net, all from a grocery store scrap. Number 3. Calendula, the flower you can eat. When you see calendula blooming in a garden, its brilliant, fiery orange and yellow petals look like they belong in a decorative vase, not on a dinner plate, but these petals hold a quiet, earthy flavor, slightly peppery, slightly bitter, and deeply savory. If you pull the petals off a fresh flower head and scatter them over a bowl of wild rice or a summer green salad, they add a stunning, vibrant flash of color and a complex, resinous crunch that completely elevates the visual and textural experience of a meal. Historically, calendula was affectionately known across Europe as the poor man's saffron. True saffron, derived from crocus stigmas, was insanely expensive and reserved exclusively for royalty. Peasant cooks quickly discovered that throwing a handful of dried calendula petals into a simmering pot of rice or winter stew would dye the food a rich, majestic golden yellow, mimicking the luxury of saffron while offering its own hearty, warming flavor. But calendula's true historical value wasn't in the kitchen, it was in the medicine cabinet. For centuries, herbalists infused calendula flowers into olive oil to create a legendary bright yellow salve used to soothe burns, cuts, and severe skin inflammation. Was it just a placebo? Modern pharmacological studies, including research from the Journal of Basic and Clinical Physiology and Pharmacology, confirm that calendula extracts contain high levels of triterpenoids and flavonoids that actively promote tissue regeneration and reduce localized inflammation. The modern cosmetic industry puts microscopic drops of this extract into expensive skincare jars. Our ancestors just rubbed the infused oil directly onto their skin. Calendula is an absolute joy to grow on a windowsill or balcony because it actively rewards you for harvesting it. Plant the seeds in a moderate-sized pot with average soil. It prefers cooler temperatures, making it a perfect spring or early autumn crop. Here is the golden rule. You must practice deadheading. The more frequently you snip off the fully opened flowers to use in your salads or to dry for tea, the more the plant will aggressively produce new buds. It is a self-replenishing factory of edible gold. Number 2. Perilla, the shield of the East. Perilla is a visual masterpiece, often boasting large, jagged leaves painted in stunning shades of deep purple and emerald green. The flavor is incredibly difficult to describe to someone who has never tasted it. Wrap a piece of grilled pork belly in a fresh perilla leaf, and your mouth is hit with a complex, spicy collision of cinnamon, anise, mint, and clove. It is an astringent, aggressively flavorful leaf that cuts through heavy, oily proteins and leaves the palate feeling instantly clean. In traditional Japanese, Korean, and Vietnamese cultures, perilla was never treated as a simple garnish. It was utilized as a functional biological shield. For centuries, chefs purposefully paired raw seafood and fatty meats with generous amounts of perilla. In Eastern traditional medicine, the leaf is classified as a warming, detoxifying agent, believed to counteract the coldness of raw fish and neutralize minor foodborne pathogens, ensuring the stomach remained calm after complex meals. This ancient culinary pairing was not an accident. It was an act of biological brilliance. Modern biochemical analyses reveal that perilla leaves are extraordinarily high in rosmarinic acid and paraldehyde. Studies in agricultural and food chemistry have demonstrated that these compounds possess potent antibacterial properties, actively inhibiting the growth of certain bacteria on raw foods. The sushi chef who placed a perilla leaf under your sashimi wasn't just making the plate look beautiful. He was historically providing you with an edible, antibacterial shield. Perilla is a robust, relentless annual that thrives in the extreme heat of midsummer, exactly when cool weather herbs like cilantro wither and die. Plant it in a wide pot and give it plenty of water. As it grows, harvest the large outer leaves, leaving the top to continue reaching upward. A single healthy plant can grow up to 3 feet tall in a container. Be warned, at the end of the season, it will drop hundreds of tiny seeds. If you don't catch them, you will have a forest of purple leaves taking over your balcony the following spring. Number 1. Tulsi, the sacred herb of the home. Tulsi, or holy basil, looks somewhat similar to the sweet Italian basil you put on a pizza, but the resemblance stops the moment you smell it. Crush a leaf of tulsi, and you are hit with a spicy, intoxicating wave of clove, black pepper, and sharp peppermint. While it can be used in spicy stir-fries, its true culinary destiny is in the teapot. A cup of freshly steeped tulsi tea is spicy, earthy, and profoundly warming, a completely different experience from the sweet floral teas of Europe. We place tulsi at number 1 because in the ancient texts of Ayurveda, it is not merely an herb, it is the incomparable one. For over 3,000 years, it has been revered as a sacred plant in India, planted in special courtyards outside the home to protect the family from physical and spiritual impurities. It was considered the supreme medicinal plant, used to treat everything from respiratory distress to severe mental fatigue. To care for a tulsi plant was considered an act of daily devotion, a physical connection between the household and the divine. How does a simple green plant earn the title of a deity? In modern clinical pharmacology, tulsi is classified under an elite category of herbs known as adaptogens. According to research published in the Journal of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine, adaptogenic herbs like tulsi do not target one specific disease. Instead, they biologically help the human body adapt to physical, chemical, and psychological stress. They help regulate cortisol levels and stabilize the nervous system. The ancient Indians called it sacred. Modern science calls it an anti-stress powerhouse. Growing tulsi is the ultimate act of slow living. It requires warmth, brilliant sunlight, and a well-draining pot. It is slightly more delicate than wild mint or oregano, demanding that you actually pay attention to it, and perhaps that is exactly the point. When you step out onto your balcony every morning, run your hands through the spicy leaves and harvest a small handful to brew your morning tea. You are doing exactly what humanity has done for millennia. You are grounding yourself before the chaos of the day begins. By establishing those 15 healing herbs on your windowsill, you have successfully built your living apothecary. You have taken your medicine back from the commercial pharmacy and secured a sanctuary of health right inside your home. But a sanctuary inside does not protect the food system outside. As the late summer heat breaks, the fatal mistake most gardeners make is retreating indoors. They get comfortable. They focus on their warm kitchens and fragrant window ledges, completely abandoning the exhausted, depleted containers sitting out on the patio. Nature does not care if you are comfortable. Autumn is rapidly approaching. If you want those outdoor containers to actually produce the heavy winter calories your family needs, you cannot wait for the first frost to wake you up. You must reset the battlefield today. Let's step away from the warm glass, walk back outside, and get our hands dirty. Here are 5 crucial things you must do right now to prepare your container garden for the fall. Number 5. Audit your containers. Before planting anything for fall, take a hard look at the containers you already have. This sounds simple, but it's one of the most overlooked steps in seasonal container gardening. Most gardeners see an empty pot and immediately think about what they can plant in it. Experienced gardeners first ask a different question. Is this container actually ready for another crop? After months of summer growth, a container can look perfectly normal from the outside, while the growing medium inside has changed dramatically. Repeated watering can cause soil particles to settle and compact. Roots from the previous plant may have filled much of the available space. Organic matter may have broken down, and drainage may no longer be as reliable as it was earlier in the season. You also need to evaluate the plant that currently occupies the container. Is it still growing strongly? Is it still producing enough food to justify the space? Or has it reached the point where you're spending more water and attention than the plant is giving back? This is especially important in a small space garden because container space is limited real estate. Every pot has an opportunity cost. If one exhausted summer plant is occupying a large container while a healthy fall crop could be establishing there, you're potentially losing weeks of production simply because you're reluctant to make the transition. But that doesn't mean you should remove every summer plant immediately. Instead, divide your containers into 3 categories. Keep the plants that are healthy, productive, and still worth the space. Transition containers where the summer crop is declining but can remain for a little longer while you prepare the next crop. And remove plants that are diseased, exhausted, or producing so little that keeping them no longer makes sense. The important thing is to make the decision intentionally. Don't plant your fall garden into a summer problem. If a container has poor drainage, fix the underlying issue. If the growing medium has become heavily compacted, improve it before introducing new plants. If roots have completely filled the container, recognize that the next crop may need a fresh environment. Think of August as an annual inspection for your container garden. You're not simply cleaning up summer. You're deciding which pieces of your garden deserve to continue into the next season. Number 4. Refresh the potting mix. After a long summer of growing, your container soil may look almost exactly the same as it did in spring. But underneath the surface, a lot has changed. Roots have been pulling nutrients from the growing medium for months. Organic matter has broken down. Repeated watering can compact the soil, while fertilizers may leave behind accumulated salts. By August, a container that started the season loose and productive can become tired, dense, and much less forgiving. That's why one of the smartest things you can do before planting your fall garden is refresh the growing medium instead of simply planting into it again. And here's an important mindset shift. Used potting soil isn't necessarily dead soil. If the previous plant was healthy and the container didn't suffer from serious disease or pest problems, there's often no reason to throw everything away. You can rebuild what you've already got. Start by removing the old summer plant and clearing away large roots and obvious debris. Then look at the soil itself. Does water disappear immediately through the container? Does it sit on the surface? Does the soil feel hard and compacted instead of loose and crumbly? Those signs tell you more than simply looking at the color of the soil. The next step is restoring organic matter. Mature compost can help replenish the biological activity and organic material that were gradually consumed during the summer. But don't make the mistake of filling the entire container with compost. A productive container needs balance. Too much fine organic material can hold excessive moisture and reduce the airspace roots need. That brings us to the second part of the reset: structure. Healthy roots need both water and oxygen. If the growing medium has become dense, incorporating a material such as perlite can help create additional airspaces and improve drainage. The goal isn't simply to make the soil lighter, it's to create a growing medium that can hold moisture while still allowing excess water and air to move through the root zone. And before planting anything new, check the drainage. If water is sitting in the bottom of the container, adding more fertilizer isn't going to solve the problem. Fix the structure first. This is especially important going into fall because cooler weather means evaporation slows down. A container that seemed to dry out every day during August can suddenly stay wet for much longer once temperatures fall. So, think of this process as a reset, not a replacement. You're taking a growing medium that has already supported one crop and giving it a second life. Refresh the organic matter, restore the structure, improve aeration, check drainage, then let the container become ready for its next job. Because your fall vegetables don't need brand new soil. They need healthy soil that has been prepared for another season of growth. And once that soil is ready, there's still one major challenge to deal with before those fall crops can truly get established: August heat. Number 3. Protect the root zone from August heat. When gardeners think about protecting plants from summer heat, they usually look at the leaves. They see drooping foliage, scorched edges, or flowers falling off, and immediately think the plant needs more shade. But with container gardening, there's another part of the plant quietly taking the punishment: the roots. A container can become dramatically hotter than the surrounding ground, especially when it's sitting on concrete, balcony, or another surface that absorbs and reflects heat. Dark-colored pots can become even hotter when exposed to direct afternoon sun. And unlike plants growing in the ground, container roots have a relatively small volume of soil available to buffer those temperature swings. This creates a strange situation. The plant may appear healthy in the morning, yet by late afternoon, the root zone can be under serious heat and moisture stress. Water evaporates faster, the growing medium dries unevenly, and the plant has to spend more energy simply trying to survive the environment around its roots. That's why August isn't the time to ask only, does this plant need more water? You should also ask, how can I make this container less hostile to the roots? The first strategy is mulching. A layer of organic mulch across the surface of the container can slow evaporation and reduce the speed at which the growing medium heats and cools. It doesn't need to be complicated. Straw, shredded leaves, or another suitable organic mulch can act as a protective layer between the intense summer air and the soil underneath. The second strategy is using shade intelligently. You don't necessarily need to put every container into full shade. In many cases, the most useful shade is protection from the harshest afternoon sun. A location that receives gentle morning sunlight but becomes shaded later in the day can dramatically change the environment around a container. You can also create microclimates by positioning taller plants near smaller containers or using walls and structures that block the strongest afternoon exposure. The goal isn't to eliminate sunlight, it's to reduce the period when the container is receiving the most intense heat. And there's another strategy that works particularly well in urban container gardens: double potting. Instead of allowing the growing container to sit directly exposed to the environment, place it inside a larger outer container. The extra layer creates an additional buffer between the root zone and the surrounding heat. It won't magically make a container cool, but it can reduce the severity of temperature swings. This is where container gardening becomes less about following a fixed set of rules and more about reading your environment. A black plastic pot sitting on a south-facing balcony in August is experiencing a very different reality from the same plant growing in a large, light-colored container beneath partial afternoon shade. The plant hasn't changed, the environment has. And that's the mindset you need going into fall. Your goal isn't simply to keep plants alive through August. You want to protect the root systems so they remain strong enough to support the next generation of crops. Because the fall garden you're planting in August still has to survive the summer that's happening right now. And while you're protecting those roots, there's another clock already ticking: the fall planting window. Number 2, start your fall garden before fall arrives. Here's one of the biggest mistakes container gardeners make: waiting for fall weather before starting a fall garden. It sounds logical. Summer ends, temperatures cool down, and then you plant cool season vegetables. But by the time the weather finally feels like fall, you've already lost valuable growing time. The better strategy is to think of August as the establishment period for your fall garden. You're not necessarily trying to harvest everything in August. You're giving your fall crops enough time to germinate, develop roots, and establish themselves while the soil is still warm and there are enough daylight hours for growth. Think about the timeline differently. August is for establishment, September is for active growth, October is for harvesting. And depending on your climate, some crops can continue producing well beyond October. This is especially important with container gardening because you have more control over your planting space. You don't have to wait for an entire garden bed to become available. One container can finish with a summer crop, while another begins the next season. Fast-growing crops are especially useful during this transition. Radishes, arugula, and baby bok choy can establish relatively quickly, allowing you to turn an empty container into a productive fall crop without waiting months. Then you have crops that need a little more time, such as beets, turnips, lettuce, and carrots. These are exactly the kinds of vegetables where getting started early can make a noticeable difference. The plant gets established before the coldest weather arrives, rather than trying to build its root system while temperatures are already dropping. And then there are longer season fall crops such as broccoli and kale. These need even more patience. If you wait until the weather is obviously cold before starting them, you may find yourself far behind. But there's an important distinction here. Starting early doesn't mean ignoring the heat. August can still be brutally hot in many parts of the country. Some cool season crops may struggle if exposed to the harshest afternoon conditions. That's why the strategies we discussed earlier, mulch, afternoon shade, and protecting the root zone, become part of your fall planting strategy too. You're creating a bridge between two seasons. The summer environment helps your seedlings establish quickly, while your management keeps the heat from overwhelming them. And this is where container gardening has a major advantage. You can move a container into a more protected location if temperatures spike. You can place it where it receives gentler morning light. You can group containers together to create a more favorable microclimate. You're not simply planting a crop, you're managing the transition between seasons. The mistake is thinking, I'll start my fall garden when fall arrives. Instead, think, I'm planting for fall while summer is still here. Because you're not planning for August, you're planning for the harvest you'll want several weeks from now. And that brings us to another decision every container gardener eventually has to make. When is a summer plant no longer worth the space it's occupying? Number 1. Build your first frost survival system now. The first frost doesn't become a problem on the night it arrives. It becomes a problem weeks earlier when you realize you weren't prepared for it. This is especially true with container gardening. A plant growing in the ground has a large mass of soil surrounding its roots, which provides some natural insulation. A container has far less protection. The root zone can cool down quickly, and the plant itself is more exposed to wind and sudden temperature changes. But there's one major advantage container gardeners have: mobility. A container can move. That simple fact can completely change how you prepare for frost. Instead of waiting until the forecast suddenly shows a freezing night, decide in advance where your most valuable containers will go. A sheltered corner beside a building, a covered patio, a protected balcony wall, or even a garage can provide a very different environment from an exposed location. You don't need to move every container. Focus on the plants that are most valuable, most vulnerable, or easiest to relocate. The second part of your frost system is physical protection. Have frost blankets, row covers, or other breathable protective materials ready before you need them. The important word is ready. You don't want to discover on the evening before a frost that you have nothing suitable to cover your plants. And remember that protection isn't only about the leaves. A layer of organic mulch can help buffer the soil and reduce rapid temperature changes around the roots. It won't make a container frost-proof, but it can help create a more stable root environment. You can also use the structure around your home to create microclimates. Walls can provide some protection from wind and may retain heat after sunset. Containers grouped together can be less exposed than isolated pots sitting in open space. A sheltered location can sometimes make a meaningful difference during a short cold event. But frost preparation isn't only about protecting plants, it's also about knowing when to harvest. This is where your strategy needs to change as the season moves toward freezing weather. Don't always wait for every vegetable to reach its maximum possible size. If a hard frost is approaching, harvesting mature or nearly mature produce can be smarter than risking the entire crop. For leafy greens, you may be able to harvest outer leaves while allowing the plant to continue growing. For root crops, you can decide whether they're better left protected in the container or harvested before severe freezing arrives. For tender crops, the forecast may determine when it's better to harvest rather than gamble. The key is to stop thinking of frost as a surprise. Frost is a deadline. And once you know that deadline is coming, you can work backward. August is when you prepare the materials. September is when you watch how your fall crops establish. October is when you begin paying closer attention to overnight temperatures. And when the first frost finally approaches, you already have a plan. That is the real advantage of preparation. You're not trying to defeat the weather. You're making your garden less vulnerable to it, because a resilient container garden isn't one that never experiences heat, cold, drought, or sudden weather changes. It's one where you've already decided what you're going to do when those conditions arrive. Executing those 5 crucial steps means you have successfully reset the battlefield. You have stripped away the exhausted remnants of summer, remineralized your dirt, and built the perfect nutrient-dense foundation for the season ahead. But a perfectly prepared container produces absolutely 0 calories. The fatal mistake most gardeners make right now is treating this fall cleanup as the end of the year. They pat themselves on the back, put their tools in the shed, and leave that rich, beautiful dirt completely empty. They do exactly what the commercial grocery industry prays they will do. They put their patio to bed. Do not leave your soil unemployed. The first frost is rapidly approaching, and it is not a deadline to stop growing. It is the ignition key for winter survival. Let's shift our focus from preparing the dirt to weaponizing it. Here are 10 cold-hardy container vegetables you must plant right now, before the first frost closes the window forever. At number 10, baby bok choy. When time is running out before the first frost, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is waiting for every vegetable to reach its maximum size. Baby bok choy gives you another option. Instead of waiting for a huge, fully mature plant, you can harvest the tender young leaves and stems much earlier, turning a relatively short growing window into an actual harvest. That's what makes baby bok choy such a useful late-season container crop. It grows quickly, stays relatively compact, and doesn't require a large footprint. One container can provide a surprising amount of fresh food without taking over your balcony or patio. And because the entire plant is useful, you're not waiting for one tiny part of it to reach maturity. The leaves and stems can both become part of your harvest. There's also a strategic advantage to growing it as the weather begins to cool. Bok choy is a cool season vegetable, so you're not asking it to fight the extreme heat of midsummer. As temperatures moderate, the growing environment becomes much more comfortable for the plant. That gives gardeners a valuable second window after the hottest part of summer is past. But there's one thing you need to watch closely: timing. Bok choy can react to stressful conditions by bolting, especially when temperatures swing dramatically. That's why the goal isn't simply to plant it and forget about it. Think of the crop as a race against the calendar. Keep an eye on the weather, watch the plant's development, and harvest before the approaching frost or a sudden weather shift closes your window. And here's the important mindset: don't wait for perfect maturity. If the plant has produced tender, usable leaves and stems, you've already won. A smaller harvest today is more valuable than a perfect harvest that arrives after the first hard freeze. That's why baby bok choy earns the number 10 position. It's compact, fast, versatile, and perfectly suited to the gardener who realizes that the growing season is ending, but still has time to squeeze one more harvest out of an empty container. At number 9, arugula. When you're racing the first frost, few things are more valuable than a vegetable you can start eating before it reaches full maturity. That's exactly what makes arugula such a smart late-season container crop. You don't need to wait for a large, fully developed plant. The young leaves are already the harvest, which means your container can begin producing food while many slower vegetables are still growing. Arugula also fits perfectly into the changing conditions of late summer and early fall. It prefers cooler weather, and as the intense heat of summer fades, the leaves often become more pleasant and less aggressively peppery. Instead of fighting the declining temperatures, you're using them to your advantage. That's an important strategy when the calendar is working against you. The other advantage is how efficiently arugula uses space. You don't need a large container or a complicated garden setup. A relatively small container can hold a dense patch of greens, turning a forgotten corner of a balcony, patio, or windowsill into a quick source of fresh food. And because you're harvesting leaves rather than waiting for a single fruit or root to mature, the same planting can provide more than one meal. But there's a trap. Gardeners sometimes make the mistake of waiting too long because they want maximum leaf size. When you're approaching frost, that's the wrong mindset. Harvest what the plant gives you while the weather is still favorable. Young leaves can be just as useful in salads, sandwiches, wraps, and cooked dishes. Arugula is therefore less about growing a giant plant and more about converting time into food. If you have only a few weeks left in the season, a crop that can be eaten young has a major advantage over one that requires months of development. That's why arugula takes number 9. It may look like a simple leafy green, but strategically, it's one of the easiest ways to turn the final weeks of the growing season into fresh harvests. At number 8, radishes. If you're looking for a vegetable that can turn a short growing window into an actual harvest, radishes are almost impossible to ignore. They don't need months of warm weather, and unlike crops where the harvest depends on producing flowers or fruit, radishes put their energy into a fast-forming root beneath the soil. That makes them especially useful when the first frost is approaching. You aren't trying to build a massive plant before winter. You're simply giving the crop enough time to develop a usable root. And because radishes are naturally suited to cooler conditions, late summer into early fall can be an excellent opportunity to grow them. There's another reason radishes work so well in containers. They don't demand much space. A relatively shallow container can become productive surprisingly quickly, which means even gardeners with only a few spare pots can add another harvest before the season ends. And don't overlook the leaves. When you're trying to maximize food from limited space, the root isn't necessarily the only useful part of the plant. The young greens can also be harvested and used in cooking, giving you another way to turn the same container into food. But the real advantage of radishes is their speed and flexibility. If the weather changes suddenly, you haven't invested months into a crop that may never mature. You've chosen a vegetable specifically because it can produce something edible within a relatively short window. That leads to an important late-season gardening rule. When time is limited, choose crops that reward you early. You don't need to wait for the perfect giant radish. Harvesting at a useful size is often the smarter strategy, especially when a hard freeze is approaching. That's why radishes earn the number 8 spot. They're compact, fast, cool season friendly, and capable of turning an otherwise wasted container into one final burst of fresh food before winter takes over. At number 7, turnips. When the growing season is running out, turnips give you something most vegetables can't: more than one way to harvest from the same container. The roots develop underground, while the leafy tops can be harvested earlier, giving you fresh food before the main crop is even ready. That makes turnips especially valuable when you're working against a frost deadline. The important thing is not to think of turnips as a vegetable that has to reach maximum size before it becomes useful. Young turnip roots can be tender and flavorful, while the greens can be picked gradually as the plant develops. Instead of waiting for one final harvest, you're creating several smaller harvest opportunities throughout the remaining growing season. Turnips also fit naturally into the transition from late summer to fall. They prefer cooler conditions than many warm season vegetables, which means the declining temperatures of early fall can actually work in your favor. As the weather becomes more comfortable for cool season crops, your turnips can continue developing while summer vegetables begin to slow down. For container gardeners, this is a valuable strategy. A single container doesn't have to provide food only once. You can harvest some greens, allow the root to continue developing, and eventually harvest the turnip itself. That means the same patch of soil can provide multiple forms of food within a relatively short window. There's also a psychological advantage. When gardeners see the first frost approaching, they often assume everything has to be harvested immediately. But turnips give you more flexibility. You can begin using the greens while allowing the roots to continue developing until the weather forces your hand. And that leads to the bigger lesson. When time is limited, choose plants that give you multiple ways to win. You don't need a perfect root crop to get value from the container. The leaves can feed you first, and the root can become the second harvest. At number 6, baby carrots. Carrots are often considered a slow crop because gardeners imagine those large, perfectly formed roots that take months to mature. But when the first frost is approaching, you don't have to play by that rule. You can harvest carrots young, and that completely changes their value as a late-season container crop. The strategy is simple. Don't wait for the biggest carrot. Harvest the usable carrot. Young carrots can be tender, sweet, and incredibly useful in the kitchen. That means a gardener with only a limited number of weeks left can still turn a container into food instead of waiting for a full-sized harvest that may arrive too late. Carrots are also naturally suited to cooler weather. As temperatures drop, the roots can develop a sweeter flavor, making the transition into fall an advantage rather than a problem. Instead of seeing cooler nights as the end of the crop, you're giving the roots conditions that can improve their quality. And containers offer another benefit. A dedicated carrot container can be placed where it receives enough light while remaining easy to monitor as the weather changes. If a hard freeze is approaching, you have much more control over a container than a large garden bed. You can protect it, move it to a sheltered location, or simply harvest the roots before the worst weather arrives. The biggest mistake is assuming that every carrot needs to become full-sized before it counts as a harvest. When you're gardening against a deadline, maturity is a sliding scale. A small root that you can eat today is more valuable than a larger root that never gets the chance to mature. That's the mindset that makes baby carrots so useful at the end of the growing season. You're not trying to beat the calendar by forcing a slow crop to grow faster. You're changing the definition of success and harvesting the crop at the stage the remaining season can realistically support. At number 5, beets. When you're trying to squeeze one last harvest out of the growing season, beets have a major advantage. You don't have to choose between harvesting the leaves and waiting for the root. The leafy tops can become food while the underground beet continues developing, giving you more value from the same container. This makes beets particularly useful in the weeks before the first frost. Instead of waiting until the roots reach their maximum size, you can gradually harvest some of the outer leaves and use them in salads, sautés, soups, or other dishes. Meanwhile, the root remains underground, continuing to develop. You're essentially creating a two-stage harvest from one plant. Beets also appreciate the cooler conditions of fall. As the intense summer heat fades, the plants can continue growing without the stress that often affects warm weather vegetables. And because the edible portion is underground, the crop has some natural protection from changing temperatures. For container gardeners, that combination is extremely useful. A container of beets isn't just a single harvest waiting at the end of the season. It can become a small food reserve that provides greens first and roots later. If frost arrives earlier than expected, you've still gained something from the planting instead of losing the entire crop. There's also a valuable mindset behind this strategy. Use the plant in stages. When the calendar is short, you don't need every part of the crop to mature at exactly the same time. Harvest what is ready while allowing the rest to keep working. And if the roots are still small when a hard freeze is approaching, you can simply change your strategy and harvest them earlier. Young beets can still be useful in the kitchen, and you haven't wasted the remaining weeks of the season waiting for perfection. Beets show that fast food production isn't always about finding the fastest growing plant. Sometimes it's about choosing a crop that gives you something edible at several different stages of growth. At number 4, spinach. This is where the countdown starts to change. Instead of simply asking which vegetables can grow quickly before frost, we're looking at crops that can actually become more comfortable as the weather gets colder. Spinach is a classic cool season vegetable, and that makes it particularly valuable when summer is ending and fall is taking over. The biggest advantage is that you don't need a giant, fully mature plant to start harvesting. Young spinach leaves can be picked as soon as they're large enough to use, allowing you to turn a container into food relatively quickly. And if the weather stays mild, the plants can continue producing new leaves instead of giving you one short harvest. This makes spinach a smart choice for gardeners who don't know exactly when the first frost will arrive. You aren't depending on one specific harvest date. You're creating a flexible window in which the plant can provide usable leaves whenever the weather allows. Spinach also demonstrates an important late-season principle. Cold isn't always the enemy. Many warm-season vegetables begin shutting down as temperatures fall, but cool-season greens can continue developing when those same conditions arrive. Instead of trying to protect a summer crop from the inevitable change of season, you're choosing a plant that is naturally prepared for it. In a container, this becomes even easier to manage. You can keep spinach close to the house, where temperatures may be slightly more stable, and provide some protection when unusually cold nights appear. That can help extend the harvest beyond what you might expect from an exposed garden. And because spinach is harvested for its leaves, you don't have to wait for flowers, fruits, or large underground roots. Every new leaf represents potential food. That's what makes spinach so valuable in the final weeks before frost. You're not fighting the calendar. You're choosing a crop whose natural preferences line up with the changing weather, then harvesting it while the conditions remain favorable. At number 3, kale. When the first frost is getting closer, kale becomes less of a vegetable you're trying to finish before winter and more of a vegetable that's prepared to meet winter head-on. While many warm-season crops begin fading as temperatures drop, kale can continue producing useful leaves through cool weather, making it one of the smartest choices for the final stretch of the growing season. The biggest advantage is that you don't need to wait for one perfect harvest. Kale gives you leaves gradually. Pick the larger outer leaves, leave the growing center intact, and the plant can continue producing new growth. That means one container can become a recurring source of food instead of a crop you harvest once and remove. This is especially valuable when the frost forecast is uncertain. Maybe you have 3 weeks left, maybe you have 6. With kale, you don't have to know the exact date. You simply keep harvesting while the plant continues growing. If temperatures remain moderate, the harvest window can keep extending. Kale also demonstrates an important principle for late-season gardening. Choose plants that tolerate the direction the weather is moving. Instead of planting something that needs increasingly warm conditions while temperatures are falling, you're choosing a crop that can remain productive as the season transitions toward winter. And don't assume that a smaller plant is a failed plant. When you're racing the calendar, a handful of young leaves can be more valuable than a large plant that never reaches maturity. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is food. That's why kale becomes such a strong late-season container crop. It gives you flexibility, repeated harvests, and a much larger margin for error than vegetables that depend on a single harvest date. At number 2, Swiss chard. If kale is the vegetable that refuses to quit, Swiss chard is the vegetable that keeps giving you reasons to come back to the container. Its greatest advantage isn't simply how quickly it can produce leaves. It's the way those leaves can be harvested individually while the plant continues growing. That makes Swiss chard almost like an insurance policy for the end of the gardening season. You don't need everything to mature at the same time. You can pick a few large leaves for dinner today, leave the younger leaves developing, and return again later. Instead of one harvest, you're creating a series of smaller harvests from the same container. This becomes especially valuable when the first frost date is unpredictable. A sudden cold night doesn't necessarily mean you've lost everything. You can simply harvest more of the usable leaves before severe weather arrives. And because Swiss chard is a cool-tolerant leafy vegetable, it can remain productive as the growing season moves into fall. For container gardeners, that flexibility is a major advantage. A single pot can keep producing leaves without requiring a large amount of horizontal space. It also gives you more control when temperatures suddenly drop because the container can be positioned in a more sheltered location if necessary. There's a bigger lesson here. When you're short on time, don't choose crops that demand one perfect harvest. Choose crops that let you take food whenever it's ready. That's exactly what makes Swiss chard so valuable. Every mature leaf becomes an opportunity to harvest, while the younger leaves continue developing behind it. You're not waiting for the entire plant to reach a finish line. You're turning the remaining weeks of the growing season into a rolling food supply. And at number 1, lettuce. If you're trying to turn an empty container into food before the first frost, lettuce may be one of the most practical choices you can make. The reason isn't simply that lettuce grows relatively quickly. It's because you don't have to wait for the plant to reach its final size before you can start harvesting. Young leaves are already useful, which means almost every week of growth can potentially become part of your harvest. That completely changes the strategy. Instead of planting a crop and waiting for one specific harvest date, you can begin harvesting the outer leaves or baby leaves as they become large enough to eat. If the weather remains favorable, the plant continues producing. This gives you multiple opportunities to collect food from the same container before winter arrives. Lettuce also fits naturally into the transition from summer to fall. The intense heat that can make lettuce struggle during midsummer begins to fade, creating much better conditions for cool season growth. Instead of seeing the end of summer as the end of gardening, you can see it as the beginning of another window for fresh greens. And because lettuce doesn't need a huge root system or a massive container, it's especially useful for balconies, patios, window boxes, and other small spaces. An otherwise empty container can become a dense patch of fresh leaves without demanding much room. But the most important lesson is this: don't wait for perfection when the calendar is running out. A young head, a handful of baby leaves, or several outer leaves can all become food. If frost is approaching, harvesting earlier is often smarter than gambling on a larger crop that may never get there. That's what makes lettuce the perfect number 1. It doesn't require you to predict exactly how many days remain. It simply gives you something useful at almost every stage. The 3 frost survival strategies. But growing fast isn't the only way to beat the first frost. The smartest container gardeners know that when the weather starts working against you, the strategy has to change. The first strategy is simple. Harvest young. Don't wait for every vegetable to reach its maximum size. A baby carrot is still a carrot. Young lettuce leaves are still a harvest. Small radishes, tender turnip greens, and baby bok choy can all become food before the plant reaches full maturity. When the calendar is running out, waiting for perfection can be the biggest mistake you make. The second strategy is harvest in layers. Instead of treating a plant as one single harvest, look at everything it can give you along the way. Beets can provide greens while the roots continue developing. Turnips can give you leaves first and roots later. Kale and Swiss chard can provide individual leaves repeatedly instead of forcing you to harvest the entire plant at once. This approach allows one container to feed you multiple times during the final weeks of the season. And the third strategy is protect the container. One of the biggest advantages of container gardening becomes obvious when the temperature suddenly drops. A container is mobile. When a hard frost is approaching, you may be able to move smaller pots closer to the house, place them against a protected wall, or bring particularly sensitive plants into a sheltered space. You don't have that same flexibility with vegetables planted directly in the ground. The container itself becomes another tool for extending your harvest window. Put these three strategies together, and the first frost becomes less frightening. You aren't trying to defeat winter. You're simply making the most of the time you have before it arrives. The first frost doesn't mean your food production has to end. It simply means the strategy has to change. By getting those 10 cold weather engines into the dirt, you have successfully beaten the frost. You have weaponized the autumn calendar and locked in a heavy frost-sweetened harvest for the winter. But mastering the thermometer does not solve the most frustrating reality of urban gardening: limited concrete. The fatal mistake most patio gardeners make is looking down. They measure their food security by the square footage of their floor, looking at a cramped balcony and accepting that their harvest will always be small. The industrial food system wants you to believe this. They want you to think that massive yields require acres of flat plowed farmland. They want your balcony to remain a decorative afterthought. But true sovereignty requires thinking in 3 dimensions. If you run out of ground, you must conquer the sky. You have to stop planting out and start planting up. Let's shift our strategy from fighting the cold to defying gravity. Here are 15 aggressive climbing vegetables designed to turn a tiny cramped balcony into a massive towering wall of food. We are kicking off the list with climbing nasturtiums, the ultimate edible ornamental that completely shatters the idea that vegetable gardens cannot be breathtakingly beautiful. When you live in a high-rise apartment, your balcony often feels like a sterile, concrete box. Most urban gardeners want a plant that softens those harsh lines with vibrant colors, but they do not want to waste precious container space on flowers you cannot eat. Climbing nasturtiums solve this problem instantly. They provide a stunning aesthetic upgrade while functioning as a highly productive, gourmet food source that 5-star restaurants across America charge a premium for. The vertical mechanics of this plant are fascinating. Unlike heavy vines that require industrial-strength supports, climbing nasturtiums use highly sensitive twining leaf stalks to pull themselves upward. When provided with a simple, lightweight string trellis or a thin wire mesh against your balcony wall, they will aggressively climb up to 8 feet in the air. As they ascend, their unique lily-pad-shaped leaves overlap perfectly, creating a dense, lightweight living sunscreen. This biological curtain effectively blocks the harsh afternoon UV rays from baking your apartment windows, naturally lowering your indoor temperatures. For your container strategy, this is one of the cheapest and easiest setups imaginable. You only need a standard 5-gallon pot or a railing planter. The ultimate expert hack for nasturtiums is intentional neglect. If you give them premium, highly fertilized potting soil, they will produce massive amounts of leaves but absolutely zero flowers. You actually want to use poor, unfertilized soil and let the soil dry out slightly between waterings. This calculated stress forces the plant to erupt in brilliant, fiery orange, yellow, and red blossoms all over your balcony. The harvest payoff is phenomenally rewarding. Climbing nasturtiums thrive best in USD. A hardiness zones 3 through 10 as a rapid growing annual. From the moment you drop the seeds into the dirt, you are looking at an incredibly fast harvest time of just 35 to 50 days. The yield is absolutely massive because the more you pick, the the more the plant regenerates. Every single part of the plant above the soil is edible. You can harvest handfuls of the vibrant flowers and the circular leaves every single week to toss into your summer salads. They deliver a brilliant, peppery, mustard-like kick that completely elevates your everyday meals while making your balcony the envy of the entire building. Coming in at number 14 is the edible sweet potato vine, a nearly indestructible tropical survivor that completely ignores the blistering heat of the American summer. By the time July rolls around, most balcony gardeners are watching their standard leafy greens wilt, turn intensely bitter, and completely die off in the oppressive heat. The edible sweet potato vine is the ultimate workaround. While traditional backyard farmers grow sweet potatoes in massive, heavy mounds of dirt to harvest the underground tubers in the fall, we are utilizing a brilliant urban gardening cheat code. We are growing this aggressively fast vine strictly for its highly nutritious, heat-proof leaves. The vertical mechanics of the sweet potato vine make it an absolute powerhouse for balcony climate control. It is a wildly vigorous grower that functions perfectly as both a climber and a cascading spiller. If you plant it in a railing box and give it a vertical trellis, it will rapidly weave its thick vines upward. Its broad, heart-shaped leaves are biologically designed to soak up intense sunlight. By training it up a net, you create an impenetrable, thick green wall. This living sunscreen acts as a formidable heat shield, absorbing the solar radiation before it can hit your apartment's sliding glass doors, keeping your living room dramatically cooler. To execute the perfect container strategy, you should use a wide, shallow 10-gallon pot. Because we do not care about root development, you do not need deep soil. The expert hack here is to aggressively feed the plant with high nitrogen liquid fertilizer every 2 weeks. Nitrogen specifically fuels extreme foliage growth. You want to force the plant to push all of its energy into creating a massive, sprawling canopy of tender green and deep purple leaves rather than wasting energy below the soil line. The harvest payoff is perfectly suited for the midsummer heat wave. This plant completely dominates in USDA hardiness zones 8 through 11, but thrives beautifully as a summer annual in cooler zones. It boasts a staggering harvest time, providing tender shoots in just 30 to 40 days after planting. The yield is practically infinite. It is a true cut-and-come-again crop. You take a pair of scissors and aggressively snip off the top 6 inches of the vines every week. The plant simply branches out and grows back thicker. The leaves have a mild, sweet flavor and are traditionally sautéed with garlic and olive oil, giving you an endless supply of premium summer greens right on your patio. At number 13, we have Malabar spinach, an exotic architectural masterpiece that serves as the ultimate heat wave rescue crop for the American balcony gardener. When the midsummer temperatures consistently cross the 90-degree mark, attempting to grow traditional spinach or delicate lettuces in containers is a complete waste of time. They will immediately bolt, flower, and die. Malabar spinach is not actually true spinach at all. It is a tropical, vining succulent that absolutely worships the heat and humidity. When your other balcony plants are begging for shade, this vibrant, red-stemmed vine hits the accelerator and grows at a terrifying speed. The vertical mechanics of Malabar spinach are a sight to behold. It features thick, fleshy, ruby-red vines that aggressively twist and twine around any vertical support they can find. You must provide it with a sturdy vertical string trellis or a rigid metal grid. Because the leaves are semi-succulent, meaning they store water inside their thick cellular walls, the foliage creates a heavy, dense canopy. As it climbs toward your ceiling, it forms a gorgeous, waxy, living sunscreen. This thick barrier completely blocks out the blinding afternoon glare, turning your balcony into a shaded, tropical oasis in the middle of a concrete jungle. For your container strategy, you need a heavy 7 to 10-gallon pot to counterbalance the massive weight of the vine once it reaches the top of the trellis. The ultimate balcony hack for Malabar spinach is moisture manipulation. Because it originates from the tropics, it craves humidity. If you live in a dry climate, use a spray bottle to heavily mist the leaves and the balcony walls around the plant every morning. This micro-level humidity explosion will trick the plant into thinking it is in a rainforest, causing the leaf size to double and the vines to surge upward. The harvest payoff is where this plant truly shines. It performs flawlessly in USDA hardiness zones 7 through 11, where the summers are long and brutally hot. You are looking at a highly productive harvest time of 50 to 70 days. The yield is absolutely astronomical. A single seed can easily produce a vine that stretches over 10 feet long, pumping out pounds of thick, dark green leaves. You can harvest the massive leaves continuously from midsummer all the way until the first hard frost. The leaves have a crisp, slightly peppery flavor with a hint of citrus. They hold their shape perfectly when tossed into a hot wok for a summer stir-fry or heavily chopped into fresh, heat-proof salads. Coming in at number 12 are scarlet runner beans, a breathtaking, dual-purpose climbing vine that brings unparalleled wildlife energy directly to your high-rise balcony. Most urban container gardeners assume that attracting beautiful pollinators like hummingbirds is a luxury reserved for massive suburban backyards. The scarlet runner bean completely changes that narrative. It is a legendary American heirloom plant that combines the aggressive, food-producing power of a heavy vegetable crop with the stunning ornamental beauty of a premium floral vine, making it one of the most exciting plants you can put on a patio. The vertical mechanics are built for total domination. This plant does not produce delicate, fragile vines. It throws out thick, incredibly strong runners that will aggressively wrap around anything in their path. You must provide a heavy-duty nylon trellis net or secure wooden poles. As it climbs, it rapidly builds a massive wall of dark green textured foliage. But the true magic happens when it erupts into clusters of brilliant, fiery red flowers. This thick, flowering living sunscreen provides total privacy from your neighbors while acting as an irresistible, glowing beacon for hummingbirds, turning your urban balcony into a vibrant nature sanctuary. Your container strategy requires a large footprint to support the aggressive root system, so a 15-gallon pot or a deep planter box is mandatory. The critical expert hack for growing these in containers during the summer is root temperature control. While the vines love the sun, the roots absolutely despise being baked in a hot plastic pot. You must heavily mulch the surface of the potting soil with 3 inches of straw or wood chips, and ideally, place a smaller potted plant directly in front of the bean pot to cast a permanent shadow on the soil, keeping the root zone deep and cool. The harvest payoff is spectacular and versatile. They grow exceptionally well as a perennial in USDA hardiness zones 7 through 11 and act as a rapid-growing summer annual in cooler zones 3 through 6. The harvest time hits right around 65 to 75 days. The yield is incredibly heavy, providing you with multiple pounds of food from a single container. You can harvest the young, tender green pods early and eat them exactly like standard snap beans. Alternatively, you can let them fully mature on the vine until the fall, crack the pods open, and harvest the stunning, massive pink and purple mottled beans inside to dry and use for hearty winter stews. At number 11, we have the sugar snap pea, unlocking one of the greatest high-yield secrets in the container gardening world, the fall balcony harvest. Most beginner gardeners associate peas strictly with the cool, damp weather of early spring. By the time July arrives, their spring peas have completely died off in the heat and they leave their trellises empty. But the true urban gardening masters know that the middle of summer is the exact, perfect time to start a brand new generation of sugar snap peas. By planting them now, you are setting up a massive, crunchy harvest perfectly timed for the crisp days of autumn. The vertical mechanics of sugar snap peas are incredibly elegant and lightweight. Unlike heavy beans or gourds, Peas use highly advanced, delicate little tendrils that act like biological fingers. These tendrils will flawlessly wrap around thin wires, fishing line, or lightweight balcony netting. Because the vines and leaves are smaller and more refined, they do not create a heavy, dark wall. Instead, they form a dappled, translucent, living sunscreen. This gently filters the harsh sunlight, allowing a beautiful, soft green glow to enter your apartment windows without blocking your view of the city skyline. For your container strategy, these are perfectly suited for tight spaces, thriving easily in small 5 to 7 gallon pots or narrow railing boxes. The ultimate midsummer hack to get these cool weather seeds to germinate in the July heat is the shadow sowing technique. You do not place the seeded pot in the direct sun. Instead, you tuck the pot completely underneath the shade of your larger tomato or pepper plants. The shade keeps the potting soil up to 10 degrees cooler, tricking the pea seeds into germinating. Once they sprout and the August heat begins to break, you move them into the sun to let them climb. The harvest payoff is an absolute joy. They are a critical late-season crop for USDA hardiness zones 3 through 8. When planted in midsummer, you are looking at a fast harvest time of just 60 to 70 days, meaning your vines will be loaded with food by September. The yield is famously prolific. A small balcony trellis will produce hundreds of bright green plump pods. There is simply nothing better than stepping out onto your balcony in the cool autumn air and snapping off a handful of sweet, incredibly crunchy peas for the ultimate healthy American garden snack. We have covered the ornamental beauties and the secret fall harvests, but as we move into the top 10, we are looking at the heavy hitters. These are the absolute workhorses of the container garden, plants that are currently going viral online for their bizarre shapes and massive yields. Before we dive into these rapid growth vines, if you are finding value in this balcony survival guide, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss out on our urban gardening secrets. Now, let's look at a cucumber that is built like a snake and the ultimate trending bath sponge hack. At number 10 is the Armenian cucumber, a bizarre, snake-like anomaly that completely solves the biggest complaint gardeners have about summer cucumbers: the bitter taste. When the brutal heat waves of July and August hit, standard cucumbers undergo severe heat stress, pumping a chemical called cucurbitacin into the fruit, which makes them incredibly bitter and inedible. The Armenian cucumber is biologically entirely different. Technically, it is a variety of muskmelon, which means it absolutely thrives in the blistering heat and never, ever turns bitter, delivering a perfectly sweet, crisp crunch every single time. The vertical mechanics of this plant are the secret to its aesthetic perfection. If you grow these on the ground in a traditional garden, the fruits curl up into strange, twisted knots and often rot on the damp soil. But when you grow them on a balcony, gravity becomes your best friend. By training the strong vines up a heavy-duty trellis, the massive, ribbed fruits hang suspended in the air, allowing gravity to pull them perfectly straight. Meanwhile, the large, umbrella-like leaves form a dense, heavy living sunscreen that creates a deep, cooling shade over your balcony seating area. Your container strategy must accommodate its aggressive growth, requiring at least a 10-gallon pot to hold enough moisture. The ultimate expert hack for this specific plant is implementing a strict, consistent watering schedule using a drip emitter. Because these fruits grow so incredibly fast in the summer heat, any sudden fluctuation in soil moisture will cause the thin skin of the cucumber to violently split open. Keeping the soil consistently damp ensures flawless, beautiful fruits. The harvest payoff is unbelievably rewarding. This heat-loving vine thrives best in USD, hardiness zones 5 through 11. From seeding to harvest, you only need about 60 to 70 days. The yield is staggering. A single healthy vine can produce dozens of cucumbers, each reaching up to 2 feet in length. Because the skin is so thin and lacks the waxy coating of grocery store cucumbers, there is absolutely no peeling required. You simply slice them into large, ribbed rounds for the most refreshing, heat-proof summer salad you will ever eat on your patio. Coming in at number 9 is the loofah gourd, an aggressive, heavy-duty climber that has recently exploded across social media as the ultimate sustainable gardening trend. If you have an exposed, south-facing balcony that receives punishing afternoon sun, this plant is your biological savior. Most people assume the sponges they buy for their bathroom are synthetic or come from the ocean. Discovering that you can grow premium, organic bath sponges on an apartment balcony is a massive revelation, making this one of the most exciting and conversation-starting plants you can possibly grow. The vertical mechanics of the loofah require serious infrastructure. This is not a delicate vine, it is a genetic powerhouse that produces thick, grasping tendrils. It will desperately grab onto heavy netting, rigid metal grids, or overhead balcony rafters, rapidly climbing toward the ceiling to create a magnificent roof. As it aggressively covers your vertical space, the massive leaves overlap to form an impenetrable living sunscreen, completely blocking the harshest UV rays. It also erupts with giant, brilliant yellow flowers that act as a beacon for urban pollinators. To support this massive canopy, your container strategy requires a minimum of a 15-gallon pot filled with rich, well-draining soil. The expert balcony hack for the loofah is phosphorus manipulation. Because it grows so aggressively, it often produces too many leaves and not enough gourds. Once the vine reaches the top of your trellis, you must switch to a high-phosphorus organic fertilizer. This sudden shift forces the plant to stop building leaves and channel all of its energy into setting dozens of heavy, hanging gourds. The harvest payoff offers incredible dual-purpose utility. The loofah demands a long, hot summer, thriving in USDA hardiness zones 6 through 11. If you want to eat it, the harvest time is about 60 days. You pick the gourds when they are small and tender, cooking them exactly like zucchini. But if you want the famous sponges, you leave them hanging on the vine for over 100 days until they turn brown and lightweight. The yield is fantastic. One vine can give you a dozen large sponges. You simply peel off the dry skin to reveal a lifetime supply of natural, exfoliating shower sponges right from your balcony. At number 8, we have pole beans, the absolute workhorse of the American summer garden and an essential staple for any urban barbecue enthusiast. While standard bush beans are great for a quick harvest, they are a terrible choice for small balconies because they take up a massive amount of horizontal floor space and die off after a few weeks. Pole beans, particularly legendary heirloom varieties like Kentucky Wonder, completely solve this by growing straight up. They are a perpetual food machine, giving you a continuous, heavy harvest while occupying almost zero square footage on your patio. The vertical mechanics are flawless for apartment balconies. Unlike peas that use tendrils to grip, pole beans are twiners. The main stem of the plant actively spirals and wraps itself tightly around any vertical pole, string, or wire you provide. By running simple vertical twine from your balcony railing up to the ceiling, the beans will rapidly ascend, weaving a beautiful, vibrant green wall. This tight canopy acts as a highly effective living sunscreen, lowering the ambient temperature of your outdoor space while keeping the bean pods perfectly shaded and tender. For your container strategy, a 10-gallon pot or a long, narrow railing trough is ideal. The ultimate expert hack to guarantee a massive yield is biological inoculation. Before you plant the seeds, you coat them in an organic inoculant powder containing rhizobia bacteria. This beneficial bacteria attaches to the roots and allows the plant to literally pull nitrogen out of the air to feed itself. This completely eliminates the need for expensive chemical fertilizers and supercharges the vertical growth. The harvest payoff is nothing short of an avalanche of food. Pole beans are incredibly adaptable, performing beautifully as a summer crop in USDA hardiness zones 3 through 11. You will start harvesting in just 60 to 65 days. The yield is practically limitless because of their biology. The more you pick, the more flowers the plant produces. You will be harvesting handfuls of crisp, stringless green beans every single week until the first frost. They are the ultimate summer side dish, perfect for tossing in olive oil and throwing directly onto a hot backyard grill. Coming in at number 7 are traditional vining cucumbers, the crisp, refreshing cornerstone of every single summer salad. Growing cucumbers on a small balcony usually ends in disaster because most beginners let the vines sprawl across the floor. When cucumber leaves sit on damp concrete or wet potting soil, they immediately fall victim to powdery mildew, rot, and aggressive soil-borne pests. By utilizing vertical vining varieties like the classic Marketmore, you completely eliminate these ground-level diseases and transform a sprawling mess into a highly organized vertical food factory. The vertical mechanics of these cucumbers rely on incredibly strong, spring-like tendrils that shoot out from the main stem, wrapping tightly around any trellis netting or metal fencing. As the vine climbs, it elevates the massive, broad leaves into the air. This elevated canopy maximizes airflow, keeping the leaves dry and disease-free, while simultaneously creating a lush living sunscreen that casts a deep, cool shadow across your balcony. Most importantly, gravity ensures the cucumbers hang straight down in the open air, preventing the yellow ground spots and rot that ruin traditional harvests. Your container strategy requires a heavy 7 to 10-gallon pot to retain moisture during the blistering August afternoons. The critical expert hack for vertical cucumbers is aggressive bottom pruning. Once the vine has successfully climbed a few feet up the trellis, you must take a pair of sterile scissors and cut off all the leaves within the first 12 inches of the soil line. This completely severs the disease bridge, preventing any fungal spores in the dirt from splashing up onto the leaves when you water the pot. The harvest payoff guarantees you will never buy a watery grocery store cucumber again. They thrive exceptionally well across USDA hardiness zones 4 through 11. With a fast maturity rate, you will be pulling crisp fruits off the vine in exactly 55 to 65 days. The yield from a single vertical vine is massive, easily providing 20 to 30 perfect cucumbers. Walking out to your shaded balcony to snap a perfectly hydrated, sun-warmed cucumber right off the vine is the ultimate reward of the midsummer urban garden. At number 6, we have the cucamelon, the undisputed darling of garden social media and an absolute must-grow for anyone with kids. This plant is a viral sensation for a good reason. It produces hundreds of fruits that look exactly like perfectly striped, microscopic watermelons, but when you pop them in your mouth, they taste like a crisp cucumber with a bright, refreshing squeeze of lime. It is an incredibly fun, exotic, and high-yielding crop that completely changes the dynamic of your balcony garden, offering maximum entertainment value with zero effort. The vertical mechanics of the cucamelon make it the perfect candidate for delicate apartment setups. Unlike heavy gourds or massive tomatoes, the vines of the cucamelon are incredibly thin, lightweight, and fragile-looking. They will not pull down a flimsy trellis or damage rental property fixtures. They weave their delicate tendrils through fine netting, creating a beautiful, lacy living sunscreen. This creates a beautifully dappled, filtered light effect on your balcony, providing gentle shade without plunging your apartment into total darkness. For the container strategy, their lightweight nature means you only need a standard 5-gallon pot, but the true expert cheat code for cucamelons lies beneath the soil. While everyone treats them as an annual, they actually develop a thick, radish-like tuber under the dirt. At the end of the summer, instead of throwing the plant away, you can dig up this tuber, store it in a cool, dark closet over the winter, and replant it the following spring. This hack gives you a massive, explosive head start on the growing season. The harvest payoff is an absolute blast. They are grown as annuals in cooler regions, but act as returning perennials in USDA hardiness zones 7 through 10. The harvest time hits around 65 to 75 days. The yield is absolutely staggering. A single delicate vine will produce hundreds of these grape-sized fruits. You do not need to peel them or prep them. You simply pluck them off the living sunscreen and eat them whole like candy. Or toss them into a jar with some garlic and dill for the most unique, bite-sized pickles you have ever tasted. We have seen viral sensations and space-saving vines, but as we enter our top 5, we are moving into the absolute heavyweights. These are the plants that will completely drop the jaws of anyone who walks onto your balcony. We are talking about suspending massive, heavy autumn harvests entirely in midair and unleashing the undisputed king of the container garden. If you want maximum food production and the ultimate living sunscreen, these final 5 are the only plants you will ever need. Let's bring it home. At number 5, we introduce miniature pumpkins, a plant that allows you to capture the absolute magic of the American autumn right on a tiny apartment balcony. When most people think of growing pumpkins for Halloween or Thanksgiving, they picture massive, sprawling suburban fields taking up hundreds of square feet. The idea of growing pumpkins on a high-rise patio seems impossible until you discover miniature vining varieties like Jack B. Little. By utilizing these genetically scaled-down vines, you can bring the ultimate festive harvest to your urban space without sacrificing a single inch of your precious floor plan. The vertical mechanics of miniature pumpkins are a masterpiece of biological engineering. Unlike giant pumpkins that require the ground to support their massive weight, these thin, wiry vines are perfectly designed to climb. They use tight tendrils to grasp onto balcony railing grids or overhead netting. As they pull themselves upward, their iconic, deeply lobed leaves overlap to create a dense, highly effective living sunscreen. But the true magic happens when the fruits develop. Because these pumpkins max out at just half a pound, the vines are strong enough to suspend them completely in midair, creating a floating canopy of brilliant orange globes above your seating area. For your container strategy, you will need a 10-gallon pot to provide enough moisture to sustain the rapid growth. The ultimate balcony hack for these miniature vines is extreme vertical training. Do not let a single vine touch the floor. As soon as the plant throws out a runner, you must weave it upward into your trellis. By keeping the vines and the fruits entirely airborne, you eliminate the risk of soil-borne rot and keep your balcony floor completely clean and usable for your patio furniture. The harvest payoff is incredibly satisfying and perfectly timed for the holidays. Miniature pumpkins are a fantastic summer to fall crop that thrives across USDA hardiness zones 3 through 11. When planted in midsummer, they have a harvest time of 90 to 95 days, meaning your balcony will be loaded with bright orange pumpkins just in time for October. The yield is surprisingly high. A single vertical vine can easily produce 8 to 12 perfect little pumpkins. They are absolutely stunning as holiday decorations, and because the flesh is incredibly sweet, you can roast them whole and stuff them with wild rice for a high-end gourmet autumn dinner. Coming in at number 4 is vining butternut squash, the quintessential comfort food of the American fall season, completely reimagined for the urban container garden. Butternut squash is famous for making the rich, creamy soups that define autumn, but traditional varieties are notorious garden hogs, sending out vines that can easily swallow a 20-foot yard. The solution for the balcony gardener is to force this sprawling monster into the sky. By carefully selecting aggressive vining varieties and giving them the right infrastructure, you can suspend a massive, heavy winter harvest directly above your head, saving 100% of your floor space. The vertical mechanics of butternut squash require serious respect and heavy-duty preparation. This plant produces thick, tubular vines and massive, umbrella-like leaves. When trained up a rigid metal grid or a heavy wooden trellis, these giant leaves create the ultimate living sunscreen, casting a deep, cooling shadow that can drop the temperature of your balcony by 10 degrees. However, unlike miniature pumpkins, a mature butternut squash is incredibly heavy. The vine itself cannot support the weight of the hanging fruit without ripping entirely off the trellis. This brings us to your container strategy and the most important expert hack on this list, the melon hammock. You will need a massive 15 to 20 gallon pot to fuel this plant. Once the squash begins to form and swell in midair, you must create a sling using old pantyhose, t-shirts, or specialized netting. You tie this hammock directly to the structural metal of your balcony rail or heavy trellis, allowing the hammock to cradle the heavy fruit. This takes all the weight off the vine, allowing the squash to grow to a massive size while suspended safely in the air. The harvest payoff is heavy, highly nutritious, and incredibly long-lasting. Butternut squash loves the long, hot summers of USDA hardiness zones 3 through 11. It is a marathon crop, requiring a harvest time of 100 to 110 days. While the yield may seem smaller, usually 4 to 5 large squashes per vine, the actual weight of the food produced is massive. The greatest benefit of this crop is its incredible storage capacity. Once harvested in the late fall, the thick, tan skin allows you to store them in your apartment pantry for up to 6 months, giving you homegrown food all winter long. At number 3, we have vining zucchini, a brilliant spatial cheat code that completely revolutionizes the most popular summer vegetable in America. Zucchini is a mandatory staple for backyard barbecues, but standard bush zucchini is an absolute nightmare for apartment gardeners. A single bush variety will rapidly expand to the size of a tractor tire, completely eating up your entire balcony floor and leaving no room for you to even stand. Vining zucchini varieties, like the legendary Tromboncino or Black Forest, flip the script entirely. They abandon the horizontal bush shape and instead climb aggressively skyward, handing you a massive harvest from a tiny footprint. The vertical mechanics of this plant solve almost every disease problem associated with standard zucchini. By tying the thick main stem to a sturdy wooden pole or a heavy iron trellis, you force the giant, prehistoric-looking leaves upward. This towering green column acts as a fantastic living sunscreen for the corner of your patio. More importantly, by elevating the plant, you maximize wind airflow around the leaves, completely eradicating the powdery mildew that usually destroys zucchini. Furthermore, because the fruits hang straight down from the vertical stem, they never touch the wet potting soil, ensuring they grow perfectly straight and never rot. Your container strategy requires a heavy 10 to 15-gallon pot. The expert hack for vining zucchini is a technique called aggressive lower pruning. As the vine climbs up your pole and sets fruit, the older leaves at the bottom of the plant near the dirt will start to fade. You must take a sharp knife and completely cut off all the leaves below the lowest hanging fruit. This creates a bare stem at the bottom, which pushes all the plant's energy up into the new growth and makes it entirely impossible for soil-borne pests to climb up into your canopy. The harvest payoff is famous for being overwhelmingly abundant. Vining zucchini is incredibly vigorous in USD, hardiness zones 3 through 11. It offers a blisteringly fast harvest time of just 50 to 60 days. The yield is legendary. A single climbing vine can easily produce 20 to 30 large zucchinis over the summer, practically forcing you to give food away to your neighbors. You will have a perpetual daily supply of fresh, crisp summer squash to slice thick, brush with olive oil, and throw directly onto your balcony grill. Coming in at number 2 is the winged bean, an exotic masterpiece often referred to as the one-plant supermarket. When you are gardening on a highly restricted apartment balcony, your biggest priority is maximizing utility. You cannot afford to grow plants that only offer one edible part. The winged bean is a breathtaking tropical climbing vine where literally every single piece of the plant is edible and highly nutritious. It brings an incredible, otherworldly aesthetic to your patio while functioning as an unstoppable vertical food factory. The vertical mechanics of this plant are built to dominate blistering summer heat and oppressive humidity. As it tightly twines its way up your balcony netting, it rapidly builds a massive wall of vibrant foliage. This thick canopy creates a formidable living sunscreen, completely blocking harsh afternoon UV rays from baking your apartment windows. The true visual spectacle happens when it blooms. The vine erupts with striking pale blue flowers that eventually transform into long, jagged pods with 4 distinct frilly wings running down their sides. For your container strategy, you will need a sturdy 10-gallon pot to support its aggressive growth and extensive root system. The ultimate expert balcony hack is fully exploiting its complete edibility to save space. While you wait for the alien-like pods to form, you do not just sit around. You can aggressively prune the tender young leaves and sauté them exactly like spinach. You can even harvest the delicate blue blossoms, which surprisingly taste like fresh mushrooms, to visually elevate your summer salads. The harvest payoff is staggering in its versatility. The winged bean loves intense heat, thriving perfectly in USDA hardiness zones 9 through 11 as a perennial, and acts as a vigorous summer annual in cooler zones 4 through 8. You are looking at a harvest time of 75 to 85 days. The yield is exceptionally high, providing dozens of crunchy, high-protein pods perfect for hot stir-fries. But the ultimate reward comes when the season ends. Before throwing the dead vine away, you can dig into the potting soil and harvest the tuberous roots, which pack significantly more protein than standard potatoes. Securing the crown at number 1 is the indeterminate cherry tomato, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the American balcony garden. If you only have space for exactly 1 pot on your patio, this is the only plant you should ever consider. The word indeterminate is the secret to its dominance. While determinate bush tomatoes grow to a specific height, produce 1 batch of fruit, and die, an indeterminate vine literally never stops growing. It will continue to climb, flower, and pump out sugary sweet tomatoes every single day until the winter snow finally kills it. The vertical mechanics of this plant are awe-inspiring. These vines can easily reach 10 to 12 feet in length. You must provide them with a tall, rigid stake, a heavy trellis, or a vertical string dropped from the ceiling. As you tie the main stem to the support, the plant rapidly builds a towering, dense wall of foliage. This massive canopy is the ultimate living sunscreen, completely shielding your apartment from the brutal afternoon glare. Walking out onto your balcony and being surrounded by a towering, fragrant wall of tomato leaves and glowing red fruit is the absolute pinnacle of urban container gardening. Your container strategy requires a large, deep, 10 to 15-gallon pot. The absolute greatest expert hack for planting tomatoes happens on day 1, deep trenching. When you buy your tomato seedling, do not plant it at the same depth it was in its nursery cup. You must strip off the bottom leaves and bury the stem as deeply as possible into the potting soil, right up to its top leaves. The buried stem will instantly shoot out thousands of new roots, creating a massive, indestructible root system that will easily pump water up a 10-foot vertical vine during the hottest days of August. The harvest payoff is the greatest reward in all of container gardening. Indeterminate cherry tomatoes are highly adaptable, thriving as a heavy summer crop in USD, hardiness zones 3 through 11. Depending on the variety, like the famous Sun Gold, harvest time begins at just 60 to 70 days after planting. The yield is genuinely unbelievable. A single vertical vine will produce hundreds, sometimes thousands of bite-sized tomatoes over the course of the season. They are so incredibly sweet that they taste like sun-warmed candy, giving you an endless premium harvest that will completely transform the way you cook, eat, and live in your apartment. When you are gardening in an apartment, the sky is quite literally the limit. You do not need an acre of land to produce a massive, high-yield harvest. By abandoning the floor and forcing your vegetables to climb, you can unlock an entirely new dimension of food production, all while creating a gorgeous, cooling, living sunscreen that turns your sweltering balcony into a shaded private oasis. Now, I want to hear your game plan. Which of these vertical heavyweights are you going to plant on your balcony this season? Are you going to suspend a butternut squash in midair, Or are you going for the visual trickery of the lemon cucumber? Let me know down in the comments below. If this video helped you rethink your small space, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone trying to grow food on a tiny patio. Until next time, look up, start climbing, and happy gardening.